welcome to episode 5. That was Black Creek by... who was that again?
Brent Cobb.
Brent Cobb. That was Chris's choice for the evening. I'm your host, as always, Nick. We got Cameron.
Hey.
We got Bookie.
Hello.
And we got Chris.
Hey.
And our special guest. Cameron, go ahead and introduce our special guest.
You want me to hand it to me?
Yeah, here.
Special guest tonight, Mitch's Straight Kentucky Rye Whiskey. So we thought we liked, well, we did definitely like the Mitch's bourbon. So we're going to try the rye tonight.
I think the Mitchers bourbon was the fan favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The lid's not on, so be careful.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, you're
damn.
slinging that thing around.
Holy
I forgot
crap.
the lid's not on
Dude,
it.
I thought it was closed.
Here, hand me it.
It does look
I'm
like it
gonna
has
go
a
ahead
cap on it. Even
man.
when it
Pour
closes.
this. First tasting.
That could have been interesting.
Yeah, no, that would have been bad.
We're going to do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Little Mitchers on
Oh,
the
you want to drink
soundboard.
the water out of there?
Yeah. Right.
I
Little
didn't-
Mitchers
I
on
didn't
the
do that with
soundboard,
mine.
never
It's gonna
heard
be like
nobody,
super
right?
watered down. Drink the water out of yours. Yeah, so this evening, what do we got? We got, we're going to revisit the stormwater tax, just because there's been a little update with that, and that was episode 2? Episode 2 or 3 topic? I can't remember. So yeah, we'll talk about that briefly. We're going to talk about, some new voting laws in Florida, and we're also going to be talking about, the beach restoration. Yeah, so
Nick's favorite topic.
yeah,
Should be fun.
should be a blast. A couple shout outs. We want to thank Scott, Chris's father. He hooked it up with some cigars for this evening. We're smoking the Camacho bourbon barrel aged Maduros. These things are amazing. I've had a couple of them in my days smoking the old tobacco. I also we always forget to do it in the beginning of the show. I know, these have a tendency of getting a little lengthy, and by the end of the show, we probably lose most of the listeners. But if you guys have any recommendations for what you want to, hear us talk about or see us drink, contact us on social media or smoke. But I mean, we're open to any suggestions. We're on Instagram at politics.ontherocks. We don't have a Facebook yet, do we? We do, but
I don't think so.
no, we don't like Facebook. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, maybe get one eventually.
Yeah, probably not. We'll see. Any last things before we jump into this?
Dude, shout out to Boogie for making dinner.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right. We keep forgetting to
Yeah.
mention that too.
Yeah, we always have dinner before.
Yeah, it's a little ritual.
Cool little tradition.
Yeah, we have a little dinner, have a glass of whiskey, get the
Little,
joints a little lubed up.
Little surf and turf pasta today. That was
Yeah.
that
Hey,
was
you still got the
fantastic.
foot band on there. You're about to be smoking plastic there, old son.
Knew that the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You're
Wait,
probably
so-
going to have to put it under the table.
So what do we
to
think
light it.
about our special guest here?
Oh, shit.
Let's do it.
A little taste test?
Yeah, everyone have a sip yet? Here.
Yeah,
Cheers,
everyone-
guys.
everyone
Episode
have a
5.
taste of the special guest.
Episode 5.
Clink, clink, clink. Ooh,
That's good.
that is good. I think I'm a rye
That's
guy.
That's different.
What would you
Wow.
call that at the end there? That little burst of.
Smooth.
It's way smoother. There's no bite to it at all, really.
Yeah. I have a little whiskey educational segment that we're gonna try and get to tonight, but we have some
wait.
pretty hot topics, so may or may not get there.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah, I like that. I'm a fan of ryes. That's like probably my first. I mean, Mitchers, granted, is really good whiskey to begin with, but that rye, man, that's something else there. That's good. Bookie, do you want to start us off, or you? What is? You need a minute, man?
No, I'm good.
You look like
So,
you're.
What topic we want to go? You want to do the overall Indian River County news?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can probably start with that.
We'll tackle the stormwater and then go into the beach restoration.
Let's do it. Let's do
All
it.
right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you guys saw anything, but the update on the Vero Beach stormwater taxes, they're not implementing it in this year. So it won't be for the 2021 area. This was... I tried looking for anything through the city itself. I didn't see anything just browsing real fast through their latest meeting, but this was posted through the TC Palm.
Well, we're pretty sure this was because of the they want to give people a break, right? Coming out of COVID.
That's what they said.
Right.
But I don't know. Everybody was kind of not everybody. The mayor bracket was against it through the whole time, but a good amount of the council members for it. But this unanimously got voted to be postponed.
Right.
Right.
People heard our podcast, man.
I mean,
There you go.
I think it was going to be a pretty tough political move for anybody to, institute this year.
Yeah,
especially
right.
when the mayor's calling for it to be postponed because of COVID, and
Right.
it'd be pretty tough to go against that. But the mayor, so the whole reason that he was against it was only because of the COVID. The basically coming out of COVID season, as far as I understand it, he wasn't just against it. He
was
he's
trying to
fine
give-
with it as long he just doesn't want it to go into effect this year.
yeah.
Bucky, I think you're gonna have to light it under the table.
No, he's got it. He's got it.
Oh,
Boogie's
nice.
having a
There
hell
you
of a
go.
time right now trying to get a cigar going.
It's not his
Oh,
fault.
yes.
That light is terrible.
It's cooking now.
Yeah, but
Hey,
it
let me get that.
pretty much what you were saying is like this year added an extra difficulty passing an additional tax
Right.
on businesses and stuff like that.
Yeah, I sort of feel like what in effect they did there though was they kind of, admitted this is a burden on homeowners and taxpayer and business owners.
It's like,
Right, it's like-
taxes are a burden.
It's like
Right,
it's like a what do they call it? A
And that's
Freudian
actually,
slip.
I mean, that's what Mayor Brackett actually called it was, it'll alleviate the burden for this year.
Right.
Is kind of the way he phrased it. It's paraphrasing, but yeah. So I don't know. It's just just kind of acknowledging the fact that you're going to be placing a burden on people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the government is the worst business partner, right?
Yeah, the only reason why I said he was against it, and I could be wrong, is because I remember reading something where he said he'd rather this tax not go through and they find, like the council members find a alternative route, like come up with some interesting ways to go about it through the means they already have set up.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he could still definitely be for it, if COVID never came through. And
Yeah, and really one of the things that allowed them to continue or to push it down the road is that they received $2.5 million through the American Recovery Act, and so they're using $500,000 of that fund towards stormwater projects. So basically, that kind of allowed them to do it this year. I wonder if it wasn't for that, if they would have even considered pushing it down
stopping
the road.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's like a grant or something?
Yeah, it's the American Recovery Act. It was like a federal program
Right.
that cities could apply for, and then they would get. I'm not sure how they decided how much each city gets and stuff, but I'm guessing it just has to do with like impact from COVID-19 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, the only other thing I kind of want to mention with this was that they, on that TC Palm article at least, again, I'm not really sure where they got that information from, but they had a quote on there from one of the council members stating that they're going to use some of this money, but the way I remember it stating it was kind of most of the money, for a management plan for stormwater. And then they were going to use the rest of that money for some projects.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just kind of interesting that, like, they were going to add this new tax in without even a plan of what they were going to do with that money.
Oh, right.
Does that surprise you though?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me,
Yeah.
but it's just a good thing to bring up that, like,
These
with
people have no clue what they're doing.
with the grant they're going to have, without that grant or with the tax, they were going to have to figure out what they're going to do with all this new money anyways.
Yeah.
Which you think...
Does that mean when they say a management plan, I wonder, does that mean like they're just figuring out how they're going to, like, just what the plan is, or they're going to like hire a consultant to create like a set of plans that they're going to use?
Yeah, I remember reading, not just with this topic, but with this topic, that at one point they had city engineers and people in this, like the city of, I guess the engineer division, they did up their own plan with stormwater.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is they have their own engineers.
Yeah.
So yeah, they shouldn't.
And then they were planning on getting consultants from out of town, which is going to cost them like a certain amount of money to write it up and figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah,
And
they'll
there's some-
definitely have to hire some.
And there was some backlash about that.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think over there?
I think
Over there on
I'm-
the far end of the table.
Yeah. No, I think it's. I think it's like a Freudian slip, like you were kind of saying, Chris. It's it's not that it's gonna benefit or help these people out. It's a at the end of the day, you're imposing another bill essentially on homeowners and businesses, and regardless of the year they had or not, it's going to be a burden at the end of the day. So,
yeah. So in the year that it was so if it would have went into effect this year, it was going to be at a reduced rate, and that was going to be an average cost of $28.56 per household
for what
for
is
a
that
year.
for a year?
For a year. So, that's not a crazy tax.
Well, do you have the numbers
But-
on like a bigger business?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I'm not sure about a business. It would definitely be a lot more than that.
Which is what they can
but
be.
that's for they will tell you. Most people are looking at the numbers for households because those are the people that are concerned about what am I going to have to pay for this. But yeah. The businesses I think are going to be the ones that are actually the hardest hit, and it's probably going to be closer to.
Well, yeah,
hundreds.
because if you guys may not remember from episode 3, but it's they base it off of what was the
Square
actual
foot?
word? No, yeah, well, yeah, but it was what permissible.
Oh,
what was it?
the impermeable material.
Impermeable material.
So like
Right.
rooftops, driveways,
Right.
asphalt paved driveways. But
That's why when we say big businesses are going to get it the hardest, that's
Right.
that's
So,
why
yeah,
they have the
well,
most property.
the thing is though, like if you think about it, like proportion wise, you're thinking of a household, they have just like a driveway and a house, so they'll have to pay this amount that I just named, $28. But then a big business, they have all this like loading dock area and
Right.
that kind of stuff. But maybe since they're bigger, they can afford that more easily. But the people that are really going to feel it is the people in the middle. The person who owns a restaurant and he needs a giant parking lot for his restaurant, right. And so he's got almost no impervious surface on his lot because he has a big parking lot covering like almost the whole thing. So then that person, like, they're not a big business. They're just barely getting by, and then they get this bill tacked on top of that.
Right.
I think those are the people who are going to get hit
the
the
thing
hardest.
is too with like, excuse me, adding like a new tax is like, I mean, because you're already getting taxed. Could they not use the pre-existing tax to do what they want to do? You know what I'm saying? Or this is another excuse to take more money from you?
Well, yeah, and you bring up a really good point because.
Oh, thank you.
Well, no, because it never comes down to budgeting. Like okay, maybe why don't you guys make do with what we are already giving you, which is already a shit ton.
Right.
Budget.
Be better.
Yeah, be better at budgeting the current taxes that you're already receiving. How come every single time they want to do something, it's, we need a new tax?
Right. Right.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
bullshit.
I need more money. I need
Yeah.
more money. It's like, no.
Government has a biggest spending problem.
Yeah, well, and
Once it's allocated somewhere, it's like it can't get taken out.
Yeah, which is
it's just-
ridiculous.
It's stuck there.
Exactly, and that's the problem with things like this. It's like another tax. Okay, you say like $28, and you're like, $28 is not that much money. But 5 years from now, they institute another tax, and you end up in like a situation like in California where you're getting taxed just out the wazoo for all kinds of different things. And
Well, yeah, that's what it is. People don't understand. Sure, it's only $28. What was it annually? Right, the average for the average household. Sure, it's only $28, but you're already paying you're already paying property taxes. You're already paying income taxes. You're already paying taxes on the gas you buy. You're already paying taxes.
Up in Brevard County, they did because pretty much all of, I think there's 6 or 7 counties along the Indian River, and they've all been served a letter basically that I can't remember where it came from. I want to say it was Florida DEP or something, but it was just like, you guys need to start thinking of ways to raise money to conserve the Indian River Lagoon because like there are some serious problems with the lagoon. But Brevard County, the way they did it was they instituted a 0.5% sales tax, and that goes towards lagoon, restoration or preservation,
Conservation.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to what we just said. It's like they're gonna find a way to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they sneak it in the sales tax way or they add an
Right.
additional tax, they're gonna get what they need. But like what Nick said is like you'd really like to see them just be better at budgeting, and say, oh, well, we need money for this, so we're gonna take a little bit of money out of this area and put it in this area and not pay whatever a ridiculous amount of money for something that doesn't need to. That's what
Right.
that's what you see. You see examples of that in
Well,
government.
Yeah, and that's the problem. They don't budget how like a household would.
Right.
Like a household,
They don't need to.
Yeah, exactly, because they can just force it out of more
Right,
people.
and it's not.
They
it's
don't
not
have
their money.
They don't have
right?
to cut back somewhere else to afford something else. They just enforce another rule that says, "Oh, we have to pay for this."
Well, imagine playing with someone else's money. That's what it is.
Well, yeah.
Wait, in your household, you have your money, the money you make, and you know how much. If you spend too much, then you go into debt.
Right.
In this situation, they don't go into debt; they just tax you more.
Right.
I will say though, Florida, out of all the states, is one of the better about budgeting. I think.
Oh, definitely.
I think typically, I'm not even going to say however many years it's been, but typically we end the year in a surplus of money as far as state money goes, which is. I guess if you're going to steal it from me, at least be responsible with it.
Yeah, that's rare
like, thank you.
nowadays.
It really
budget
is.
surplus, like it pretty much never happens anywhere in the U.S. nowadays.
That's why Deasntis is trying to get that Florida Texas union going.
Oh yeah, I seen something about that.
Right?
Really, I didn't hear about
Well,
that.
no, he's just sending people over to help with the border.
Oh yeah, I'm
Florida.
just kidding. I didn't see anything about it then.
But like, it's just funny because it's like Texas. I think is a very similar situation as Florida, where they're pretty good budgeted wise, and
Yeah.
so it's like a little union going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, little Florida Texas union.
A little
I'll send you a
under the
couple-
table tuggy,
Yeah, I'll send you some guys over there to watch your border.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They say only steers and quiggers come from Texas. So
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Whoa,
whoa,
whoa.
whoa.
it's only
We
episode
have so
5
many
we
listeners
can.
from Texas.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
many.
all right.
Sorry to anybody from Texas. Didn't mean to offend you.
Hopefully that doesn't offend anybody from Texas. You're from Texas, but
I think you'd have thicker skin than that by now, living in Texas.
right, fighting off coyotes and wild boars.
Yep.
But
That's a good segue. Good point to jump into the next topic. Yeah.
Well, yeah, coyotes and boars right into beach restoration.
Well, we were talking about the whole impervious. Yeah. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm trying to say, man.
Yeah,
You know what I'm trying to say.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think the only thing I want to say, last note on the stormwater taxes, the good thing about them obviously delaying it is that it's not happening, but it gives us, or when I say us, a unified city to kind of come together and be like, we don't want this, and stand up to it more. Because again, these people want to be reelected for the most part, and it looks really bad if they go against what everybody in the city wants. So
Well-
honestly, even I've kind of I want to say is like struggled to find reasons not to do it, but like it's almost like tough to like argue it, right? Because you're just like, people are like, oh, you don't want the Indian River Lagoon to be like better?
Right.
So here's my counter to that. I wonder how many people would, if you made it easier for homeowners and businesses, I wonder if you made this tax voluntary, how many people would be
They should,
willing to spend $30? Like you said, it's not that much, it's $30 a year. But how many people would be willing to voluntarily, knowing they live in Florida and like that's like, especially in our area, the lagoon's like the biggest appeal,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
in Indian River County. I guarantee you'd see. I was going to say something crazy like 90, but I think you'd see over 50%
I mean, so
participation in that.
So with the reduced rate, they were expecting to net $365,000. That's what they were expecting to get
for the first year.
So I guess that kind of plays into probably why they, well, I guess they could have used that money somewhere else, but they're using $500,000 towards it this year, so they wouldn't have gotten quite what they wanted with the reduced rate. But $500,000, like, do you think
That's a
in
house.
Indian River, like,
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah, but I'm just saying like that. I feel like that'd be pretty reasonable. I think they could raise that in.
Oh
a
yeah,
year.
yeah, absolutely.
In
I
a
thought you
year.
were saying like, what is like $300,000 going to do for the lagoon?
Oh no, yeah, no.
I think we have to remember too that there is already budgeted amount of around 600 700,000 for stormwater
Right.
in the budget right now, every year. And if I remember correctly from the episode, we went into this a little bit more. The Florida state has already put out numbers they want to see counties and cities who are on the lagoon to get their lagoon water to certain levels based on whatever science they have. And Vero Beach is already ahead of the curve when it comes to certain levels for 2025, and they're getting close to 2030 levels.
Oh wow.
So
So just to say, so I obviously spend a lot of time out there.
Yeah,
so
dude, we get it. You fish.
yeah, here we go again.
No,
Welcome
no.
to the fishing podcast.
Yeah, your host Cameron Hunnicky.
Oh no, I'm just saying because
No, we're just
I
fucking-
do. You know, you guys, you know, whatever. I'm out there, you know, so I know, and I agree with Chris, and it's hard for me to say. No, I don't want to see money go towards the lagoon, and you know, you brought up that point before, Brookie. You like selfish capitalist, but you keep bringing up this point. "Oh, we're already got the rich boy, you know." Anyways, but you brought up that point, but okay, but like it's like it's not enough. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what kind of standards they have, but like it can be better. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure, but we're
Yeah.
trying to reverse something that's happened over the last 100 years.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, like if my question to like an actual person who like was really knowledgeable on this, which is nobody on the city council or the mayor.
We're probably the most knowledgeable
Yeah.
in any river county.
So we'll ask us this question:
The
is,
smartest people we found.
Yeah,
is that you know, if we could take
we looked really
you know,
hard.
pull a Biden move and just print as much money as we want, how much money could we print so the problem would go away by next year?
Right.
Is that even a number that's even valuable?
Yeah, I don't think that's something.
Yeah.
it's anything involving nature. You can't make anything happen overnight, right?
Correct. So it's like one of those things where like we have to have like reasonable expectations.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just saying that like.
Dude, the manatees are gonna die. All right, that's what's gonna happen.
Look, I don't really care too much about the manatees. I'm just wondering about the fish, you know. But I just, you know,
well,
we haven't done a good job, obviously, right? Like it's not in a good condition.
Yeah,
You know,
the seagrass, like you've mentioned before, is
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's important to the manatees, but it's also important to the fish and all the other.
Yeah, which is what I
just
really
the entire
care about.
ecosystem. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably one of the main concerns is just the seagrass
Yeah.
going away, and
Yeah.
then it just leads to like
right.
quick erosion and just like
It's muck.
Yeah. Well, that too. It's like
Sticky
we
monkey.
haven't had much. I mean, we're getting rain now, but other than like rain, right? Like we haven't had much rain in the past.
no, it's been
4
a pretty,
months?
Pretty.
Mhm.
I mean,
dry.
when it rains, you're like surprised.
Mhm.
And even
It's
that
an-
being said, you know, now we have like a blue green algae, you know, bloom.
I
So
feel like we're in it now.
you
Though.
kinda
Like
can't-
it's been raining right at 3:00 every day.
Yeah, it's been
So,
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we're
right
there.
on cue.
We're there now.
Do you feel that breeze?
Yeah, that's
I-
nice.
That's
huh?
so weird. Right when we
Oh,
started
yeah.
talking about it, I feel like it literally dropped 5 degrees in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, it feels good. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. And I'd like to see that get better, you know, and I'd like to see us also not tax people a bunch of money for it to happen, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know.
It'd
don't
be
know.
interesting for them to get someone who's actually like really knowledgeable on this, like in the science,
Right.
who's also part of someone who like understands money. So like,
Yeah.
because scientists like they're great, but at the same time they're just thinking about the science and they're just thinking about, oh yeah, we just do this.
Mhm.
But it's like, all right, well we have to understand other things too.
Yeah.
This downfall of Fauci,
Um,
but like, it. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I think like you said, making it voluntary would be a pretty cool idea to
Right.
actually like someone in city council actually like suggest that as a way of doing it, like because this year they just did away with it for a year and said we're gonna wait until next year. So what if next year they just say
Same shit.
Well, no. What if they just say we're proposing that every household contributes $30 towards the stormwater management for to preserve the Indian River Lagoon, and then like explain to people what they're gonna do and how it's gonna help the lagoon, and then see how many people actually contribute to it. $30. I feel like
I feel like
a lot of
most
people
would.
can do that.
You know, too, like with that kind of thing.
All right,
Make
not
it
to cut you off.
Make it 50 to contribute.
Let's
for the
make this
people who-
our last points because we're approaching 30 minutes and we're not even into the.
All right.
Thanks,
Which
dude.
is good. Which is good. This is a good conversation, but we have some things we want to cover. All right, go ahead,
This guy, dude.
dude. I will stand up and.
We gave him some power. You know?
Oh my god.
It's a perfect example.
Oh, shut
No.
the hell up.
No. But I mean, now I lost my point. Oh my god. What was I gonna say? I don't even know.
Ad break.
No. This is what I was gonna say. But if they made and we talked about this earlier, is like they didn't have if they had a clear goal. This is what we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
This is where this money's going.
Right. Instead of just saying, "Oh, we're going to clean the lagoon." What does that mean? And how are you going to do it?
Yeah. Are we gonna install baffle boxes and do these certain things to restore grass and this and that? But who wants to give the government money when you don't know where it's going? You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. In the private sector, you can't just walk up to people and ask them for money without having a plan. So
Yeah. So why can the government?
Well, because they can force you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At gunpoint too, by the way.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on this topic. My last words that we should talk about at some point in a future episode is alternative ways for taxes. I think, like you guys mentioned, voluntary
taxes,
stuff. It's I think it's recorded pretty well that Americans, even being taxed as much as we do, we're pretty liberal in the sense of we donate a lot of our money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
charitable. We're charitable.
Yeah, thank you, charitable.
We got you.
So that's an interesting topic I'd want to touch on at one
yeah,
point.
for sure.
You could touch on that all day.
All right, Nick and Chris, anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, you guys kind of, I would just kind of be repeating what has been said already. I have a lot of childhood friends that are, same way as you, Cameron, on the lagoon every day. Shout out to my buddy Vaughn, Dirty Bird Charters. I actually had a pretty good conversation with him over the weekend, and he seems to think it's the same type of stuff where you have so much sediment and so much fertilizer and so much not algae, but all this shit that's basically just made a film. I mean, if you go in Sebastian River, literally anywhere, and you touch the bottom of the river, it's just it's probably a good 2, 3, 4 inches of just solid slime.
Yeah.
And it's how can anything grow through that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and as far as the tax goes, I think you would see more people willingly, volunteer to pay that tax. I don't think that's something that you need to impose on people. I mean, as a hunter and fisher and outdoorsman, we already pay into that with our, the licenses and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. And, you go to any tackle shop or any, outfitter store, and they have shit where you can donate to these places. And most people do. I mean, you go to Bass Pro, you're in line. Most people, whether it's $1 here, $1 there, you go to Bass Pro 5 times a year, you give $5 every time. There's your $30, right? Well, 25, but you know what I mean. So I think I don't think you need to impose that on people. I think it naturally will happen. Yeah. So
Right on.
we'll
Segue into the next
yeah,
one.
we really gave it to that one. Huh?
Yeah.
Good.
So
We game bang that topic.
to kind of jump on the next topic, which
So
is
to segue, gangbang on the beach.
gangbangs on the beach. You
With the
cannot-
mucky algae.
Well, you cannot do right now because they're not wide beaches, right? So
I like how you brought that in.
That was
Wow.
actually a good
Wow.
segue.
Yeah.
So-
wow, Bucky.
So our next topic is how Indian River County itself got a grant from the state. Was it $7.3 million for beach restoration?
Yep.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So beach restoration, mainly. Sorry, the noise in the background. So
What is that? Is
there's
that a cat being molested?
I think so.
I don't
But,
know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mainly,
It's Florida, baby.
when states talk about beach restoration, or states of cities, they're talking about pretty much just dumping sand back on the beach, whether it be in the dunes or what are the berms, germs,
Berms, yeah.
Berms, yeah.
Germs.
and the water. So yes, this is Indian River County getting $7.3 million to continue its
That's a
restoration.
To literally dump sand into the water.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Before anybody else gets in, before Nick, or
Neg just cool
So
it down
they're
over
giving
there.
me shit in case you guys didn't pick up. They're giving me shit because I've mentioned dumping sand onto the beach in like 3 of the 4 or 5 episodes now. So that's anyway. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
no, I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to put in before you jump on that.
Oh, I mean, go ahead.
So the overall, so the county does have a plan with this. So it seems like they're a little more put together, the city, I guess. But they're doing a phase segment to restoring the beaches along the Indian River, obviously. But this is phase 1 was starting at the beginning of the year, which was from
And I've seen it firsthand that they're up
Yeah.
and down the beach, and
it's
by the
closer to
inlet.
you guys, Sebastian.
Yep.
Also,
Yeah, so they're doing section 3, which is from Seaview subdivision to Obaso.
Yeah,
So
they've
that-
been doing Golden Sands Beach.
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah, the last I seen them, they were like near the inlet, which I guess is Golden Sands area.
Yeah, and so phase 1 of this was dumping sand on the dunes, the berms, and the water. Again, just to widen the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were going to plant native dune grass, again, on the dunes to help stop erosion, apparently.
Right.
And they're going to move on to phase 2 in November once the sea turtles are done dropping their eggs off here.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. My you guys are laughing. I was quick to jump into that. I guess my biggest critique or complaint with this is it's distracting, isn't it?
I don't know what it is.
I think it's
Somebody
birds making
slingshot
love.
that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let Moses out.
Yeah.
Get him.
We need a podcast slingshot. I think.
Oh my god.
So yeah, my biggest problem with this is it's entirely to protect expensive properties on the beach. These rich people that decided they want to be able to shit 50 feet from the waves. And I don't know in what universe that's my problem to pay my taxes to dump sand onto your beach.
Yeah.
I understand, there's the local beaches and stuff like that, but I couldn't find anybody because this has been going on throughout the state. Broward did it. We're doing it. There's a couple other counties doing it. In no place, and none of the articles and research I've done, not a single person mentions public beaches. It's all about the expensive properties on the beach, which I guess you could argue is part of the, I guess more down in South Florida, there's all the, stuff on the beach.
Well,
but
it's got to get through the public beach to get to the expensive properties, right?
yeah. 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 And not only that, nowhere in none of the article, and I dove pretty deep on this one, and I was reading published works from scientists and stuff, and not the only, not the only general consensus, but the general consensus across the board between all these scientists was that it's not a permanent fix. It's temporary. So this is going to be a continuing thing every so many years.
Don't love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Granted, I guess it's, in a roundabout way, it is tax money because it's state, it's a state grant, right?
Yeah, it's just coming
So,
from somewhere else.
yeah. So, again, I don't know how I'm now responsible for your property that you decided to build 50 feet away from the waves.
yeah.
Not to mention how detrimental it is to the inshore habitats and on beach habitats and all the animals and stuff, which I'm sure as this discussion goes on we'll cover. But
If you had $10 million, you wouldn't shit 50 feet from the waves every morning.
that's besides the point, Chris. I don't have $10 million. All right.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm in favor of shitting on the beach.
Yes.
Not on the beach.
I don't have $10 million
house
and
by
I do
the-
that already. So
But,
So-
Dig a hole if you're going to do that. At least bury it.
yeah. Go ahead.
no,
man.
fuck that.
Go ahead.
You would.
No, I don't know. He mentioned some of the stuff I was reading was obviously protection of 30 different species like birds and whatever else lives on the beach, and
The turtles.
rich white people and thongs. That's the other.
Gotta protect
species.
that.
Yeah, I gotta. And then they
Mike. Talking to the mic, damn it.
Guys got too much power.
Hold your notes in front of you like this. There you go.
Rich white people. That's the other.
That's your notes. That's all he has. That's all he has in his notebook. Rich white people.
No, with tourism and so forth. So they talk about. I have a lot of different things on this, but like, they want to make it like about like the species and the tourism, but like, it's a really interesting thing because like these people's houses are literally on the beach. Like,
you couldn't get closer.
Yeah, I mean they're right there.
Yeah,
and especially like in Wabasa where they're doing this and stuff like that. If you walk along the beach, like it becomes an issue when like their ladder doesn't touch the sand.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, when they have to do the leap off their
Dune
crossover,
crossover, yeah.
No,
to get to the beach.
It's always funny whenever you like walk down the beach, like right after just like a big storm or something, and then pretty much all the ladders, a bunch of them are gone, and then some of them are just like floating, and then like a couple months later, it'll just be like an extension of like clearly new wood, like on the end of it, like just finishing it off.
Yeah.
And then it just never goes back up to where it was, you know.
And interestingly enough, another, when I was reading some of these published works and peer-reviewed works, another general consensus across the board, without any dispute from any scientist, was that the preferred. So there's beach nourishment. Is that
Yeah.
what that's beach nourishment.
Right.
Then there's building seawalls. And then a third option that doesn't get talked about unless you look into these, peer-reviewed works is, shit, I gotta find, damn it, why'd I put my phone away?
The reefs?
So
No, it is, managed retreat.
Yes.
That's the 100% preferred option.
Well, that would mean people have to move their houses.
right.
Yeah,
so
well,
you
ain't
allow
too
it to
fucking
retreat,
bad.
and
Like I said, how is it my problem all of a sudden that because you wanted to build your house on the beach and now the beach is taking it away, why is that my problem?
Yeah, I know a guy who.
If my house floods, you're not going to fucking pay for it, right? Well, I guess in a roundabout way.
only a fool builds his house on sand. Oh, just dropping a.
so everybody in Florida.
Yeah.
Jesus said that. Okay. But no, I mean I don't know. It is weird. It's weird in the sense that like they're I don't know how to make sense of this, but it's like you really do kind of feel in some way that like you're paying something they should be paying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's like is there a way that you could do this without? I don't know, man. I don't know how to understand.
Yeah, make them pay for it them fucking selves.
So one of the things that you mentioned that's like one of the options is the seawalls. Those do a great job of protecting, your property. But what happens is the ocean water, when it comes up at high tide and it hits against that seawall when it's supposed to be going up the beach and filtrating down
It's
into the
actually
sand.
more force, right?
So, yeah, what ends up happening is it creates a current that flows along the wall, and that current flows all the way to the end of the wall and erodes the sand of the people next door who don't have a seawall, like
Fuck
a
'em.
bunch of times faster than it normally would, because there's a whole like side current coming off of
Right,
the
yeah,
seawall.
And you also don't have a beach.
And so up in Orchid, there's a whole community that has a big seawall, and then Golden Sands is right north of it, and so that's why Golden Sands is always just getting eroded to like ridiculous amounts, is because it's just getting constantly hit by that current from the seawalls.
Yeah.
So
Now,
yeah.
is that a factor stating as a civil engineer?
Yeah.
Or a
Well,
homeless guy.
I mean-
this is fact.
So I guess I don't know for a fact that Golden Sands is experiencing that, but I would suspect, based on the fact that the seawalls are right south of it, that
Yeah.
is a contributing factor.
High factor.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a really tricky time. This is a really tricky time to do something like this because of how vulnerable our ecosystem has been. I know, technically it's not the lagoon, but there's a lot, especially, where they're doing this up by the inlet and stuff. There's a lot of that, a lot of that marine life that goes in and out. He lives, is on the beach and then comes in, and we've had the past couple of years with the algae blooms and red tide. Like, it's been rough for a lot of these ecosystems, and now we're coming in and we're going to be dumping sand all over the beach, and initially most of that sand gets carried away, and you run into a lot of issues where the if the sediment that you're dumping on the beach isn't, and you could probably elaborate more on this, Chris, because you're smart guy over here. But when the grain, the grains aren't the same size and same weight and things like that, you get really interesting things happening where it settles in areas where it normally wouldn't, and now you're burying the natural reefs, and
it also it can be detrimental to the native fish, because if you have higher fine content than you're supposed to have, then you're going to have more soils floating in the water, and then the fish can get suffocated because there's too much fine content in the soil you're dumping. But they do go through all the processes that they need to test,
right, to ensure that it's close.
The gradation of the soil.
Yeah, so I saw that the Indian River County is going through a company called Stewart Materials in Fort Pierce.
Yep.
And they went to a website, and not much information, but they did boast that they do take most of their sand that they do for beach restoration from mainland of Florida, which I was looking into, which is preferable, because what people used to do is they used to take it from the bottom of the ocean.
They used to
further
pump it,
out.
right.
With a boat, right? They would pump it from a boat, and then they would blow it onto the.
And then, like you guys just mentioned, they'd find that would be a lot finer than what's on the sand,
right?
And then it'd be like
there's a reason it settled out there instead
correct.
of up on the beach. Yeah.
So at least in that aspect, they are doing something that's, if Stewart Materials is being truthful, they're taking it from a place and they're going to match it, and it should be relatively what it should be on that beach, there. But the thing I kind of saw, which was kind of interesting, is during this phase, now if you go to the actual, the engineers, I forget what it's called, but it's the coastal engineers, I think. Mm-hmm. And they're a big, thing they always write every year, what's their plan. They do mention reefs, restoring the reefs and putting in, what's the...
artificial reefs?
Artificial reefs. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, in this $7.3 million we're not doing any of that.
Yeah, even though we have natural reefs, and we should still have natural reefs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm just looking at my notes here, and that was kind of
that's
the
main
point.
problem of bringing in new dirt. And
yeah, you're
dumping it on top of existing dirt. Is you're creating a constant landslide of sand that's just going to keep filling, and eventually it's just going to be a shelf out to
Yeah, you're burying the natural erosion protection. That's what reefs do. They naturally protect from erosion, and you're seeing all this sand getting dumped, and I don't care how close the grain structure is and how scientific it gets. That sand goes somewhere. It doesn't stay on the beach forever.
No.
It gets washed out.
Not. Right.
And where does it get washed out to?
Right.
It gets washed out to the first place that is different elevation, right? Which is a reef.
Right.
And it'll eventually build up on that reef, and like you just said, you're going to bury it. You bury it, and now
it's gone.
Now you have to pay to have an artificial reef built.
Mm-hmm. So
what the fuck is that?
I don't know. The rain has brought out some crazy animals.
There's just a werewolf out there, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so something that I was thinking about, and I guess this
You
is...
hear that?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know.
Florida is a
Take my headset
wild
off. I'm
place.
like, what is that? It sounds like a mix between an owl and a hyena. It's like a Chewbacca.
No, but
Baby Chewbacca.
and something to go back to kind of mine and Nick's point as being frustrated with the dynamic that you have right now with the house right on the beach. What if you didn't have that house right there? Would you have more room to play with something better? I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
I don't know.
Think about.
I just think that there may be a different solution if there wasn't a house literally right on the beach. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Literally, they built their house right there.
They couldn't get it closer.
Yeah. So there's there's something to be said in that regard. What if it wasn't there and there was a way to build something different that worked better? Because the problem with this, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is
He's like, you're wrong.
there's not really much innovation as far as how do we keep this from,
There's two options. You either dump more sand or you build a seawall. We haven't come up with.
right.
Well,
and they they seem to like
Oh, yeah.
start to build plants and stuff like that. Put plants on the dunes.
Yeah.
And that seems like something relatively new, you know, and it seems to be working. But when you're
definitely
looking
helps,
into
yeah.
this, you don't see of any creative ways to like make it work, like
Yeah.
for like the long term.
So the
you know?
one,
I have an idea. Not to cut you off,
yeah,
Chris.
no, go ahead.
Try and remember what you're going to say.
if your idea is considers murdering rich people, or
I'm like, damn, never mind, Chris. Go ahead. No. Here's my proposal. You guys ready?
Wait, finish that thought.
Yeah. Here's my proposal. We bulldoze all the rich people's houses down, and we dump them just past the natural reef. So now we have an artificial reef, the natural reef, and then beautiful beaches.
I never thought about that idea.
Yeah, that's a good one. You could throw the rich people in there too.
I'm sure there's some libertarian ideas that are.
So you're
in
going with the
conflict with that
Israeli
one.
plan then.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
No,
So it's similar to what I
Destroy
said.
the whole. Yeah.
but
Anyway, your point, Chris.
Oh, so I was gonna say the one, one of the things that they do on the beach with those houses that are built, 50 feet from the waves, is so there's a coastal construction control line, and it's moved once. I think it was set like in '85.
Is
and then they
that
changed it
how
again.
far you can build
So-
on the beach?
Yeah, basically it's a line that runs all the way up the coast, and anything seaward of that line, you have to put pilings on your house. And the way the pilings work on the beach is so basically you figure out where the water table is below where you're going to build your house. And then wherever the water table is, 2 feet above that, it varies up and down the coast, but about 2 feet is where it's called the scour line. So that's where it's expected that if a 100-year storm, basically the worst possible storm we could ever imagine, which there'll probably be a worse one, but whatever. So if a 100-year storm rolls through, that's where the beach is expected to erode to, is to 2 feet above the water table. So the house is designed to be able to stand on its own if everything is eroded, like typically it's like 8 feet below the bottom of the house. So it could just be standing on piles if all the soil was eroded underneath it.
So how deep? Like I know it varies probably greatly depending on
It's
where you're at.
Some shit's probably gonna crack to be like, because it's not gonna be perfect. Because they design it for pilings to work, but like they consider they're supposed to not consider the fact that soil is supporting it, but realistically, there's parts of the house that are gonna crack. But,
Right. But how deep do those pilings go?
Usually they go like 30 to 40 feet.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Chris, you're the smartest homeless guy I've ever met. Just saying.
So, something I want to bring up, going back to the sand dumping, that is from what research I did, that's the most expensive way to do this. And again, we're doing it for wider beaches.
Wait, to do what?
To protect the beach.
What, sand?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the most expensive way. It's the most
It's the most temporary
Yeah.
too. by the
temporary,
way.
but it's the most proven, right?
It's also pretty short term.
Short term based
Yeah.
on our storm calendar and how bad we have. But one thing that artificial reefs are great, and I think they've tried to do it and it didn't work too well, but it was quite a bit of years ago, are they wave breaks? Or are they
I don't know.
so it's I can't remember the term, but it's like something so it's past the reef line where it stops the waves. It makes the waves break earlier.
Right.
Right.
So that
yeah,
way it
which
reduces.
I think-
Sucks for surfers.
It sucks for surfers
they have them.
in a couple places, I think.
Yeah, I think they have them right off of Mulligan's or like down by there.
Well, they have like a really close artificial reef.
Oh, is that what it is then?
Yeah, like you
Okay.
see like the buoys and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's something where
the breakers, maybe? Is that what I'm thinking of?
maybe, but like, even artificial reefs. Like I read somewhere that within a year budget, they put 30,000 towards artificial reefs, and it did quite a bit. Like quite a amount of reef was put down. Imagine you put 6 million of artificial reef down. Like how much more could we get done?
Right.
Yeah.
And again, this is all going off that like they wanted the wider beach because it looks better for tourists and it stays away from people's houses.
And also, they want to be able to walk off their little stairs into the beach.
Correct.
I mean, they literally
Well, I
in
mean,
some places can't do that.
with a lower, with not as wide of a beach, the water could be right at your steps.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, this is like
Yeah, right.
off the
Get
top
even
of my
closer.
head, but like, I mean, if you're putting an artificial reef on top of built up sand on top of a reef, isn't that just accelerating the process of building up material down there? Like, you're just going to cover that up with more new sand, and then you're going to have to put another artificial.
And I feel like that's
how
like
does that work?
I feel like that's the perfect analogy for government intervention. You know what I mean? It's like there's a problem, let government get involved. They spend a shit ton of money that you pay for, creates another problem
and then you
that you get to pay for to fix again. Like
No, but I think you make a good point, man. Because I mean,
I always do.
if no, not you. No, but I mean, if you're gonna spend $7 million or whatever on just dump, literally, this is my issue with it. It's just dumping sand that's gonna be gone in like a year. Or
It's
two.
quite literally throwing money into the
Yeah,
ocean.
yeah. So, like, if you can come up with a more innovative, better solution, possibly, like you said, like an artificial reef. I mean, I don't know. Like,
Well,
Chris has his own ideas. about
No,
that.
no, but like, so I read this article on Surf Magazine, and there's this, I forget the guy's name, but he was being interviewed, and like, he was going after like the state of Florida, specifically the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and like,
Which is where this grant is coming from.
correct, this is where the grant comes from, and it's what they do is every municipality in Florida writes like, please give us money letter, and like, this governmental agency has the power to be like, we grant you money and you money, but not you money. And
Gotta
it's
love
like,
it.
so it's like every city or municipality is like really trying to get this grant because they don't want to tax their, people more. But like, he was kind of going after this as like, this is like a Ponzi scheme. Like, this is a perpetual money for this agency and people involved and like the companies who like provide the sand. Like, this is like a business that will never run out. Because
Yeah.
you're always going to need to put sand on the beach. So what point do they have innovating when the companies who are providing a lot
It's a one hand wash to the other situation.
the lobbyists for the sand the sand
And this
people.
goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like
Sand
once
people.
sand people. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like once the money's allocated somewhere, it doesn't come out of there, and that includes what you're saying. Once the money's in the sand people's hands, it never leaves the sand people's hands because they're in with the government at that point, and they're friends.
Wait, are we talking about?
Wait, are we on this?
Are we talking about Israel again? Did we?
No, we're talking about Stewart Materials.
Oh, those sand people. Okay.
No,
I got really confused. I was like, shit.
And that's, it's nothing against Stewart Materials. They got a thing going on right now, and I don't blame them for,
Exploiting it.
providing the fucking sand. Like the government wants sand, give them sand. But
no, for sure, this is all the government's issue.
But yeah, no, exactly. It's like if I was in the place of Stewart Materials and I was shoveling sand and like fucking pulling out a sand mine and I needed a place to put it and the government said I need sand to put on the beach, fuck yeah, I'm giving them sand. Like
Yeah, that's just smart business.
Well,
like, I'm not.
mean,
I don't think it's. But at the same time, it eventually turns into this sort of relationship that, like you're saying,
Right.
it prevents innovation, and they're just in a relationship with each other.
this is pretty much like
and
a multi-million-dollar business now, where they shake
Right.
hands every year. Like, all right, you give us this money, you give us this sand.
Yep.
See you next year.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also,
and that's not what we want to see. Like, that's not a long-term solution.
That hinders innovation. Like
Right,
just
and
to repeat what you
also,
said.
kind of to say what you just said is that like they are looking at it from a point that they're making their job like what is the word I'm looking for? They're making it like useful. Like they're like, oh, they need us kind of job. You know what I'm saying? Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
Like-
kinda,
like-
are you talking about the Florida Department of
Yeah,
Environmental
exactly.
Protection? Yeah,
exactly.
like we have a job forever because we'll always have to put sand on the beach.
exactly. So
Yeah.
if they were to innovate, they could be almost be found useless. In
Correct.
some
Or
sense.
even if they did innovate and they still have their jobs, well, now they have all these sand people going, hey, our lobbyists are always going to be there saying sand's the best way to do this
right.
Yep.
because we make multi-million dollars off the
Yeah.
sand.
You gotta love the government.
There's so many examples of that type of behavior too. When it
Oh, yeah,
comes
this
to,
is like-
state level, county level, like
This is like Control C, Control V.
And it's like
government.
it's like they're probably not even at that level yet where they have lobbyists and stuff. But like eventually, that
Yeah.
like it builds up
Well,
because
I-
you're
I
making
would
that
say in
sweet,
Florida they
sweet
probably
government dough, and
Yeah, that
it builds
cookie
up.
boy.
And then next thing you know, you got some money to spend on some lobby boys.
That sweet Sam money, babe.
Send them lobby boys up there to Tallahassee, get that deal done. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, I gotta say this rye whiskey's going down way too easy,
I wanted
bro.
to- I wanted
We're
to
only
fulfill-
halfway through and the bottle's almost gone.
I wanted to fulfill Kim's wish of turning this into a Theo Von podcast.
No, this is a lot. This is smooth.
I think
Yeah.
I'm a rye guy.
You're a right guy.
I'm a rye guy. I don't know what to say.
Whoa! Lightning!
Whoa!
Timestamp
This shit
that
cuts
to make
off the
sure-
light.
That
Lightning just
actually
hit us.
didn't happen. We're all just that drunk.
No, but like
That
again,
white lightning's hitting.
to go back to this article, was just like the guy brought up a lot of good points, and he's like he brought that up. Which again, if you want to put your conspiracy hat on, which I don't think it's that much of a conspiracy idea to say that this is happening in real time, but also like we should try these other things like the wave breaks, look into more artificial reefs in areas where the reefs have been destroyed, to kind of allow the Florida environment to continue what it should be doing, which is like sustain itself.
Right, naturally.
And like we have to come to the conclusion that not all Florida beaches will be wide. Like that's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like
Some
like
of
the
them
only
be them little skinny beaches.
yeah, like the only
wide
wide
beaches.
beach in Vero I can think of it that's wide.
I love me a skinny beach.
I was just gonna
Drink-
say I gotta prefer a wide beach. I'm not
That's
really
true.
a big fan of skinny beaches.
But no, the only wide beach is South Beach,
Like I'm
right?
thick.
Like that's naturally I can tell wide 365 days out of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right down there at like the south end of Florida, which kind of makes sense, right?
It's got
'Cause
that divot where it comes in.
Are you talking about South, like Miami Beach?
No,
Or
South Beach and Vero.
here.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, that's like at a part of Florida where like just
you can
it
see
jumps
the
out,
actual
yeah.
land itself divots in.
yeah.
And South Beach is like protected somehow by the coastal
little
waters.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's like a little bit of like a kind of like bay type thing.
Yeah,
there,
that it creates.
I
where-
guess so. I guess the jetties kind of prevent, and a lot of the inlets, the way they're built, they have a jetty to them, and they prevent some of the southward flow of because naturally the sand would erode southward and just go
Yeah, it
like
keeps-
all along the
the
coast.
idea is
but those jetties
yeah.
prevent them from going all the way down. Then they build up, and then the beaches south of the jetties just
get fucked.
get washed out, and nothing fulfills them.
Yeah, but no, but
Nothing fills
that's a
them
good
up.
point. I wonder why, like like Aquarius and like South Beach, they're enormous compared
I mean,
to like Wabasso.
JC and stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean it has to be. Just
Yeah,
the way
Sebastian
the land
beaches
is.
are
Natural
short. You walk
geography.
over the dune and you're in the water almost.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Granted,
Those
like
are cool beaches though, with
Yeah.
the dunes behind them are like
yeah, no, I prefer
Yeah.
the Sebastian beaches. Fuck Vero Beach.
Okay. No.
But no, that's a good. That like just to kind of go back to what Chris was saying. I read a couple articles that saying like near the inlets you typically have more erosion.
Right.
Same,
Unnatural
what
erosion.
Chris was saying. So I maybe that's part of it. I don't know because like
Yeah.
you think down what Miami beaches are pretty wide, right?
I don't know. I don't go to Miami.
I do
went to
all
South
I can
Beach.
to stay out of
I
there.
went to
But
South Beach one time. It was pretty weird, but the beach looked pretty wide. I think, yeah.
yeah, and I don't think there's like a Miami inlet. I think the closest one is in like. I don't know.
I don't think they're that wide. I mean, I think they're wide compared to like beaches up here.
The last time I was at South Beach, it's probably twice as wide as South Beach in Vero, South Beach, Miami.
At least.
Yeah.
They are wide. They're
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
wider.
But
than
even
what
like
we
north,
want.
like Jacksonville beaches, they're pretty wide too.
Yeah,
Right.
They are.
I mean, they're shelly.
Right, but there's
Like who
I
the hell
don't
wants to go to
think
Jacksonville
there's
beaches? But
there's a port up there, but I don't. Is there a Jacksonville inlet? Like, there's not really inlets up there.
Well, a long story short is like there's got to be more innovation and like how to like prevent this situation. That
you mean
we're
we
Yeah.
can't just keep dumping $7 million worth of sand?
I agree. I think the artificial reefs could work and the wave breaks like you're talking about, but I just like don't want them to just keep pouring new sand over top of that. It just
Correct.
doesn't make sense.
You would have to like. It would have to be a thing where like, all right, we have to come to understanding that these beaches, based on what we've done to change the natural way that water works and just how Florida works itself, are going to be less wide than these other beaches.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really unfortunate. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
Listen, you don't need that wide to play cornhole. You don't
Yeah.
need that wide to
Shoot.
play beer
Like,
pong.
Like Mr. Smith that walks
Go to a
in his
different
black
beach.
thong.
One table
Wow.
wide.
Wow. All right. How many inlets do you think are in the state of Florida?
72.
60.
Cam?
I only know of one.
Pretty sure I got that from an article.
So the east coast of Florida, there's only 19.
Yeah, I knew there
Okay.
wasn't much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Smart guy Cam here.
Is there
And I mean,
60
when
for
you
that?
think about it, it's mainly an East Coast thing. I mean, the Gulf, you don't have big waves in the Gulf.
Yeah, it's
No,
different.
we,
It's a
we,
different
So-
setup.
we don't talk about the west coast of Florida.
No, I know we don't. Fuck that place. But I'm saying, for the sake of this argument, when we talk about thick beaches versus skinny beaches, there's only 19
Yeah.
inlets. There's only 19 inlets in the entire South Coast, or
There's-
the East Coast.
I mean, there's 2 next to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next to us.
19.
I mean, Fort Pierce and Sebastian.
We just throwing out fun facts here, or what are we
Yeah.
doing?
I mean, 19 down the whole East Coast, though. Like, that's pretty abundant. It's not like,
Well,
a crazy
shit.
amount, but
How long is the East Coast of Florida?
let's divide.
Divide by 19.
Let's do some
Oh my
math.
God.
Let's
This is
divide
the-
that
this is
number
the,
by 19.
The fun facts segment.
That
Yeah.
can't be right. I'm not even going to say it because that's not right.
Well, I just
Yeah.
hope that they figure something out because it doesn't seem like it's very practical.
Yeah.
I wonder what adding more inlets would do. I mean, I know you typically see more, or I guess
they're
you see,
basically just there for the convenience of boaters. Pretty much. Like, that's
well,
the only
yeah, but
reason
you also have a lot of wildlife that comes in and out, like the snook
Yeah.
and they the redfish and stuff. They come into the river to mate and lay eggs.
So I mean,
and
I
shit
guess
like
it
that.
would create more like interaction with the.
Right, but I'm
the
saying I
animals that would
wonder
come in, but-
if you had more inlets, if you'd see less erosion. No, it's kind of counterintuitive. I feel like that's backwards.
Yeah, you'd probably see more.
Yeah.
well, if you guys want to see us get a guest that actually knows this stuff, and
Yeah, let's get a coastal engineer on the show.
Yeah.
like what's that place? Harbor
Branch.
Harbor Branch.
I actually know 2 scientists that work there.
Yeah, we should
There
get
you
them to talk about
Yeah.
it. That'd be cool.
Tessa. You know Tessa.
Oh yeah,
Tessa and Michelle.
she works.
Shelly
She
Sharks.
works at Harbor.
And they're both fired.
Yeah.
Branch? She works at Harbor Branch.
They are not affiliated with Politics on the Rocks, so if you work at Harbor Branch and you hear us talking about them, they have no affiliation with us. Please do not.
So we're gonna have to settle for somebody at Harbor Freight.
Yeah, I think they were at Harbor Freight.
They're a lot
yeah.
cheaper.
Next episode,
easier to get on.
our guest here is a gentleman or a woman from that's going to talk about the erosion of beaches from Harbor Freight.
He's like, man, I don't know what the hell y'all talking about. We got hydraulic wood cutters.
But any last words for this topic?
I think it's
I think it
fucking
seems like a good time to-
monstrous waste of money. Sorry, I just talk completely over you, but go ahead.
I think it seems like a good time to go to our sponsor that starts with the letter W.
Oh, you guys want to do whiskey talk real quick?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
let's
I
do a
gotta go to
whiskey
the
talk.
bathroom.
All right, we'll go to the bathroom. I'm gonna
Well,
drop some whiskey bombs.
Let's just finish this real fast so we can pick up on the new
All
topic.
right, I
So,
normally finish fast.
I always finish fast. Chris, do you want to say anything about this? Beach
Um,
erosion, $7.3 million going to
No, I
sand.
mean, I think everything.
I think I drank.
I had to say. I hope that we can come up with a solution that doesn't involve just continually doing, dumb things like pouring sand in the beach. It's just going to erode down and cover things that we want to be uncovered, and then we have to build artificial versions of that thing that we covered on top of it, and then
Spend more money.
yeah.
So it's just it's a continuing process that I just hope we can overcome because
Me too.
I would hope that, for at least my closing words, agree with everything, that with the grants that we get from the state, we could give some of that money to the nerds that love this shit, who would probably do it for pennies on the dollar to figure out ways to do this that are much better for the environment and that
Yeah.
will be lasting.
Yeah, I think for my closing words, I think there's a little bit of like handshaking, like you said,
For
because there's like no. It seems like there's no incentive to for innovation in this, and I hope that, like you said, give some money to the people who can figure it out instead of just dumping.
The nerds are here to save us.
Not only the people
No
that can
dumping.
figure it out, the people that want to figure it out for the ecosystems and
Yeah, right.
to protect the wildlife.
Exactly. The
and-
people that want to figure it out.
'Cause I mean, I know this segment I've been shitting on the rich people pretty heavily.
Well, rightfully so.
But at the end of the day, I mean, realistically, if we could keep those people
Afloat.
yeah. If we could keep them on the beach and keep our
Thriving.
beaches, air quotes healthy
Or
without what
Or thick.
or thick. Yeah, if we could keep them beaches thick, boy. No, seriously, if we could keep the beaches in good condition without destroying the ecosystems near them and on them, I'm all for that. I just no part of my brain can make sense of how dumping literally millions of dollars worth of sand onto a beach to just be taken out into the ocean to cover our the natural reefs that we've had for hundreds of thousands of years before we were ever here.
Them reefs brought down the Spaniards.
Yeah,
All right?
dude, and
You
we're
gotta
trying to
realize
bury them
that.
things.
You gotta recognize
We're
that.
trying to bury them things.
Well, with that,
Today's episode was brought to you by the letter W, the most useless letter in the alphabet, but it spells whiskey, so that's who we're sponsored by tonight. So all of our sponsors actually dropped us after the last episode, so we're kind of rebuilding our base here a little bit. So this ad's going to be a little bit different. We're going to do a little whiskey talk. I'm going to get a little sensual with you. Talk about some whiskey. So yeah, we're just going to do a little educational bit. On whiskey. So there's a lot of different types of whiskey. A lot of people don't know whiskey is actually a generic term, much like the word vehicle or building, for example. There's a lot of different buildings and there's a lot of different vehicles, just like there's many, many different types of whiskeys. So whiskey, in its simplest definition, just means grain alcohol that has been aged. That is the definition of whiskey. How you age it depends on the country. How long you age it and the requirements for the whiskey depends on the country as well. The name bourbon, scotch changes based on where it's from and the types of grains used. So, like I just said, grain whiskey or grain alcohol, that's whiskey that's been aged. The names come from Uska Beth, which means water of life. Over time, that has shortened to Uski, and then eventually became what we know it today as whiskey. The E was added as a marketing differentiator. Irish and American whiskeys will have an E. Scottish and Japanese whiskeys normally don't have an E. So, Cameron, you brought over that whiskey one time.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't know if you've looked at that bottle since. There's no E. It's WHISKY. There's no
Wow.
E. Yeah. Almost all whiskey is made from 4 different kinds of grains. Let me see. Corn, barley, rye, or wheat, or any combination of the 4. Malt whiskey almost always means all barley. In America, there's no legal requirement for it to be all barley. But oftentimes in America, it means all barley. Whereas in Scotland, if it's a malt, it has to be all barley. So, yep, that's something interesting. Grain whiskey, traditionally in England, means it's just a mix of grains. The aging in wood gives it the smoky flavor that's very, very prominent in whiskeys. Where the fuck it gives it the flavor and wood. Some countries allow coloring. For example, in Scotland,
Is a cat? Sorry.
Whiskey cat.
Whiskey cat running through the backyard. Where the fuck? All right, so yeah. Damn, that rise got me going here. For example, in Scotland, they allow some caramel coloring, which is interesting.
Seems like cheating.
Yeah, a little bit, right? But
Yeah.
it's whatever. It's how different countries do the things. But ironically, America has the most stringent rules in regards to what you can call your liquor, depending on the process.
Classic.
That's right, boy.
Yeah. That's the American way. We like to regulate things
You're
here.
gonna call your whiskey whiskey, better be whiskey. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What he said, boy. So how you call it has to do with where it's from. For example, Scotch has to be distilled in Scotland, or has to do with the grain recipe. Distillers refer to this, air quotes, recipe as a mash bill. It is the recipe or ratio of grains used in the recipe. Bourbon legally has to be 51% or more corn, which I know you mentioned in previous episodes, and American to be called bourbon. So it has to be distilled in America to be called bourbon. Although many people in Kentucky will argue this, it can be distilled anywhere in America, aged by law in new charred American oak barrels. That's a legal requirement. Where a rye just means it's 51% rye. When it comes to Scottish whiskey, there's 5 labels that can be on a bottle. We have single malt, single grain whiskeys. Single, however, is not an adjective for the malt or grain. Interesting. A lot of people don't know that. Single and grain, or single and malt, are 2 different words describing 2 completely different things. When single grain and single malt, or with single grain and single malt, single is not an adjective describing the malt or grain. It simply means one distillery. Malt and grain refer to the recipe of grains used to make the whiskey. In Scotland, malt means it's all barley. If it's grain, it's a mix of grain, which is actually closer to what most people consider an Irish whiskey or an American whiskey. Where a blended Scotch is a mix of alcohols from multiple distilleries. Hence the name blended versus single. If you have a mix of single malt and single grain, you have a blended Scotch, which is the cheapest Scotch whiskey because you can get the alcohol from anywhere. But because it's a Scotch, it still follows the guidelines, being distilled in Scotland, aged in a minimum of 3 years in used oak barrels, which is different from America where it has to be new charred oak barrels.
So they have to be used?
Yep, they have to be used in Scotland.
Wow.
Yep, for Scottish.
So so they just get them from America? We just like
that's it, baby.
Send them used
I
bourbon
guess,
barrels.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
Those terms are specifically enforced when it comes to Scottish whiskey or Scotch, which that's when you hear Scotch, people think it's like some completely different, type of liquor. It's just bourbon, or not bourbon, it's whiskey distilled in Scotland. That's all that means. Mm-hmm. But those same guidelines still apply to most countries, although not legally. So in America, you can have a single malt, but it can't be called a Scotch because it's not distilled in Scotland, and legally, it doesn't even have to be 100% barley, where if it's a Scotch, it has to be 100% barley to be considered a air quote malt. You can have some corn, wheat, and other grain to flavor it, but most of the time when you have a single malt in America, it's them just doing a Scottish-style whiskey in America. Ireland has a very traditional way of making whiskey. It's a single pot still with single malts. The blended grain came later in whiskey. A trademark flavor in Irish whiskey comes from a unique process where they actually add a percentage of unmalted barley into their recipe. Kind of cool how that came to be. The English tried to tax the Irish out of existence, much like they did everyone else. So the Irish said, fuck you, and started using less malted barley and started using unmalted barley. So malted grains, we're talking about barley right now, but so malted grains comes from a process of tricking the grain into thinking it's growing. Where's my phone at? Into thinking it's growing. So it cracks its shell and germinates, and the starches begin to break down and it gets really nerdy and really sciencey, where unmalted grain is just grain picked straight from the plant. Because whiskey takes 4 years to age, and a lot of companies will do what a lot of companies will do is actually buy whiskey in bulk and finish it differently to get the flavor profile they want. And you and I talked about this in the truck on the way here, Chris. There's a company called MGP in Indiana that actually is responsible for distilling about 50% of the bourbon brands in any store at any given time.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you see, a bottle with whatever. So whiskey snobs will disagree, but they actually do a very good job and know what they're doing. And while they legally don't have to say, we get our whiskey from MGP, they do have to say where it's distilled. So 98% of the time, if you see, if you pick up a bottle of bourbon or whiskey and it says Indiana, it's more than likely an MGP whiskey. A lot of people don't really like this analogy, but I like to make it. Let's say you go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse or Vero Prime or whatever. Like, do you really give a shit that they didn't grow the cow in their backyard and butcher it themselves? No, right? It's still a great steak, right? And same thing with whiskey. It's still a great whiskey. So, as I said before, rye whiskey is 51% rye. So, you'll see oftentimes, I don't know if you guys notice this picking out bottles, but you'll see what's called a high, air quotes, high rye bourbon, which is something distillers do to cut down on the corn to make it a little smoother. I don't know if you guys noticed that tonight. That rye was pretty smooth, right? Compared to, we've been drinking a lot of bourbon. All high rye means is that it's the next highest ingredient, right? So, you know how on, you look at, for instance, if you picked up a box of Triscuits, in the ingredients, it's listed from the highest percentage of ingredient down, right? So wheat is probably the number one, and then it goes down, sugar, all that kind of stuff. So that's all high rye means. It's the next highest level of ingredients. All right, so to test you guys, you ready?
Ready.
What would a blended malt Scotch whiskey be?
Multiple choice?
No, you guys gotta explain it. If not, I'll tell you what it is. All right, you guys suck. It's a whiskey. I didn't give you much time, but it's a whiskey, no E, WHISKY, from Scotland because it's a Scotch, from multiple distilleries because it's blended, all barley because it's a malt, aged in used barrels because again it's Scotland, right? They don't have to, it doesn't have to be a new barrel. Aged for at least 3 years. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing about whiskey in general is it's extremely subjective, right? We all drank the same bottle tonight. We all said, it's smooth, but we all had an extremely different experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And the best part is, we're all right? It's how we enjoyed it.
That's it.
Some of us drank it with...
you can't be wrong with whiskey.
That's it. Some of us drank it with no ice. Some of us drank it with ice.
They always say the greatest judge is your taste. Or your... Yeah. How you enjoyed it.
Yeah. No.
That's the greatest
judge. That just supports the point I was making. It's completely subjective and none of us are wrong.
Yep.
True.
So that was
as always. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say, as always, none of us are wrong.
Oh yeah, no, we're never wrong. I feel like
But go ahead. Sorry,
our listeners know that by now.
But
yes, that
was
Whiskey Talk with your boy Nicholas.
Thank you, guys. Back to the topic at hand.
Back to the show. Yeah, we're back.
Thank you for that talk. I appreciate that. That was a good thing to listen to. What we just had.
Oh, the letter W. Yep.
The letter W.
Yeah. All right. Back into the show.
Did that right.
Let's do it.
So, Boogie, introduce the next topic, if you would be so gracious, gentlemen.
So, our next topic is about Florida's new voting laws, SB 90. This is actually signed May 6th.
Relatively recent.
Yeah, relatively recent. It's more of a news now because a lot more people are putting lawsuits against it. If I'm correct, right? So
Yeah.
Just to go over what the law, generally does, it restricts ballot drop boxes.
Right.
It bans collection by individuals of multiple completed ballots, adds requirements to request mail-in ballots. So it's kind of adding a little bit more, stringent policies on some of these things that we saw in the last election that the Republicanos did not like.
Right. And I mean, one of the major criticisms I've seen so far is that after the election happened, most of the Republicans were saying, the elections in Florida went off without a hitch. There was no problems with the Florida election. And so I think that's one of the big critiques that I'm seeing from, Democrat opposers of this law. Saying, so the Republicans were saying the elections were fine, but now they're kind of see it as a backtrack, is what I'm.
Yeah. So if you want me to, I can go a little deeper into like what these laws were going into. Just
Go deep.
Go deeper. So you can only request ballots for the next general election. So I guess before for mail-in ballots, you could do up to 4 years. So now it's only up to 2. So they're kind of restricting that time limit on there. Apparently, if you're like grandfathered in within the past 2 years, you're fine for whatever that means. Election officials are prohibited from mailing ballots to voters unless requested. That's kind of interesting. Didn't know you could just mail out ballots to whoever you wanted to.
Yeah, I got some
that's
stuff
a
to say
little
about
odd.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stamp that one out. That's fine. Yeah.
Request for mail-ins ballots you have to show ID or a similar identification that's on your voting record. I guess a little quick tour about this. I believe I vote in person every year. I have to show my ID every time I vote.
Yeah.
So that just makes sense, I guess.
I mean, you have to have
either-
your ID for so many things.
You're
I
talking
don't
about
know.
for a mail-in ballot?
Yeah. So
So it's either an ID or a social security.
yeah, it's some type of identification
Yeah.
that matches up to your records.
Right. Yeah.
And another thing this touched on was ballot harvesting, which I think goes back to individuals can only carry up to like 2 separate filled out ballots now.
Yeah.
So you can have one person going around collecting all these ballots
right.
and then dropping them off.
So is that what ballot harvesting is?
I
I've
was
heard
just
this
going to
term
say
so
that.
many
I
times, but
never even knew what the hell it was.
It sounds very sketchy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And
It is sketchy.
So it's basically going around collecting. Well, I remember, say what you want about whether you think the integrity of this last election was, fair or whatever you want to say. But there were quite a few videos of these, I guess now it makes sense, quote, ballot harvesters that were going door to door,
right.
Offering to take these ballots in, and then you seen the ones where they were like kind of nudging people into, filling the ballots out in the way that they wanted them to, and so that makes sense now knowing what the actual, definition of ballot harvesting is.
Yeah, and then it also expands on soliciting to voters. So you have to be so typically right, you see everybody on the side of the road when you go to vote in person. So I think now there'd be you can't approach them within a certain amount of area, and I think this was big in Georgia because the way the law
Is that true though? That they can't even approach them at all?
correct? Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're with a group of people who have to do with voting, you can't approach a voter, which I guess kind of makes sense, but kinda not. But
See, I guess it makes sense, but at the same time, if you're walking in to go vote, I feel like I should say right away that I think voting is the dumbest thing we do as a country.
who is the anarchist at the table?
Found him.
Yeah, well, there's 2 of us, so just sit tight because this should be a fun segment.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're walking in to a polling, whatever the hell you voters call it,
Station.
polling station, and you're gonna be swayed by somebody approaching you, then you shouldn't be fucking voting anyway.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we all know that the situation that we have with voting is kind of go in and just fill out what people told us to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, which
It's
is
or Republican or Democrat, it's kind of whatever. But go on.
No, I mean that was pretty much it. That's kind of what the main thing it expands on. A lot of what I saw was it's not as intrusive as some of the other Republican states that are putting these laws into. Like Georgia obviously had that big backlash.
yeah. But
because
what was that even over?
So
Wasn't it
the-
just companies making a stance?
No, so the big thing about Georgia was they introduced you have to show ID when you vote, which Florida already does.
Right.
If I'm remembering this correctly about Georgia, That was like the big thing everybody was up and about.
Well, when I was
Yeah.
still retarded and voted, I did have to show my ID. So yes, I
correct.
think you're
Florida,
correct.
you have to.
Yeah,
So-
no, absolutely. But so the one thing I wanted to bring because the way I read it with the so they said you can't give people gifts to influence them.
Doesn't
And
that
so
even include
that's-
like bottles of water?
Well, so
I remember seeing something.
so
about
the
that.
way they worded it, as far as I saw it, was that you can't give them gifts to influence them, and the way all of the media outlets worded it was they said some advocates say that this can include pizza and water bottles. So I don't think that's really true, honestly. I think that if someone walked up to people in the voter line and said, "Hey, you want a water bottle?" and just handed it to them, I don't think this law covers that. I think it's if someone comes up to someone and says, "Hey, can I give you a water bottle so you can vote for Joe Biden?" Like that's what they're talking about. But
Right.
and I mean, 99% of America, a water bottle isn't really going to sway anyone, but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there are parts of the country that probably a slice of pizza and a bottle of water can, influence you one way or the other. I don't know. But
Honestly, voting's so stupid. You could give me like, you give me a 5-pound bag of white rice, and I'd vote for who the fuck you want me to vote for.
I mean,
stop.
I vote.
vote
I
for
vote
Andrew Yang.
And my
Andrew Yang, $1,000 a day.
and my amount to sway my vote. What I tell you is pretty low, but when I go back into the voting booth, it's pretty high.
Right.
So, but yeah. So I mean, if you want to go point by point,
Yeah.
So now you can only request ballots, so mail-in ballots for the next general election, which is for the next 2 years. So I guess before you'd have to request it because I've never done a mail-in ballot before, and you could be, hey, I want to be on mail-in ballots for the next 4 years or the next 2 general elections. So now they've reduced that. You can only do that for 2 years,
So
and
I got
every
a
2 years you have to reinstate that.
Right.
So
Oh, shit happens in 4 years, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I got a little bit to say about that.
yeah, go ahead.
I
Ken.
know a thing or two about the old mail.
Fed.
Okay, stop.
Okay.
So no,
Fed,
but
fed,
so what
fed.
happens with those, and why I generally agree with this new regulation or whatever term or whatever they're doing here, is what happens is you have people move, right? And so what they're trying to avoid is you have old mailing lists, and so you have ballots going to people who don't live in that house anymore because they're going off like an older mailing list. So they're saying if you want a ballot.
You have
For
to
this
request
year,
it.
You have to request it.
I think that's fair.
I think that's completely fair.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what happens is you have ballots going to people who don't live at that house anymore.
Right.
Right. And I mean that happens. I mean I can tell you.
and then they could
firsthand.
just drop it off in a drop-off ballot. Like this past year, they
Yeah.
could have just dropped it off in a drop-off ballot box, and their vote could have been counted twice.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. It's like they say that they look at the signature and all this stuff. I mean, I don't know how great that. I mean, mail-in ballot is already like a sketchy thing.
Yeah.
I think
Isn't that so subjective though? They're saying they're matching it up with ballots. I mean, if you take, for example, you or me,
yeah,
and we both look at a signature and match it up with the real signature,
right.
we're gonna have different opinions on whether or not it matches or not. No,
Yeah, it depends on who you want to win,
exactly.
right?
And that's
So-
why voting's stupid.
Yeah, well,
just-
so I mean, that's an issue with mail-in ballots, and I completely agree with that.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's 100%
if you want a
fair.
ballot, you should have to request it.
Yep.
And if that's too much of a hassle for you, then drive to the place and vote in person.
Yeah.
Right?
But Cameron, the coronavirus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, coronavirus.
I think a theme that you might hear from at least me throughout these kind of things they've changed, whether I agree with them or not. This one I do agree with is in the private sector. You see a lot of times with businesses when they do things, the point of entry usually has multiple things put in place to deter people.
Barriers.
Barriers, exactly. Who will deter them if they're not up to quality to enter what they're looking for. So, if you go onto a website and it says apply now and you click apply, right? That's one barrier. Well, then you have to put information. Well, that's another barrier. Well, then you have to fill out this form. That's the third barrier, right?
Right.
This is all to deter people who are not fully willing to be
Invested.
invested,
Yeah.
correct. So like, if you can be on just put on mail-in ballots for the next 4 years, because that would include, I would assume, your local, which is every year, I think, or every 2 years as well. Like, I think that's a good thing because, I'm for voting because it's what we have in place. But the more barriers people have to put in place, or the more barriers in place to weed out the people who won't be as, I don't want to say effective, but who shouldn't vote because they're not. It's hard to say, but like if you're not fully into it and you're not invested and you're just voting because it's something to do, I think the more barriers are beneficial overall.
Yeah, it's like so.
You're going to get
these...
not to interrupt you. You're going to get a higher quality of voter.
Hopefully,
right? Yeah.
Right. So all these basically we're putting all these measures in place, like vote in or mail-in ballots. And, now people are talking about making it online. You can just go online and vote, which is, a whole nother issue in itself. But, so why are we catering to the least common denominator to be, as cruel as I possibly could be there? Is like, why are we catering to the people who can't get up off their ass, go to their voting station and vote?
Yeah, well, that's.
Is it really that hard? They make it pretty convenient. It's within a couple miles of wherever you live.
Yeah,
like
super
if
convenient.
You can't get up and go to the polling station and vote, then I'm sorry, but you didn't even try.
Yeah, that really supports what you were just saying, Bookie. How the more barriers you have in place, you could argue that that's fair or whatever you want to say, but the more barriers you have in place, the higher quality of voter you're going to get. You're not going to have some schmuck who just wants to roll out of bed and don't even have, like you were saying on the computer, you don't even have to roll out of bed and you just grab your laptop and vote from right from bed. Like, do you really want that people making decisions for the entire country? Like, I know it's weird because like the greatest thing about America is also like one of the worst things, and that's and I hate to say it, but that's the fact that like everybody has a voice.
We've seen that with
I think
social
everybody
media.
should have a voice, obviously, but
Yeah.
I mean, you get into a really weird, like Plato, for example. He was a insane critic of democracy, and one of his favorite analogies was if you were going on an expedition, let's say from Europe to, obviously this is in Plato time, so if you were going from an expedition from Europe to an unknown Atlantis.
Thank you.
Sure, let's use that one. Do you want people who have no experience in seafaring to have a say in who's going to lead the ship? Or do you want people who are experienced in seafaring to be the ultimate deciders of who's going to lead this voyage?
yeah.
And I feel like that's the exact same analogy with, voting as it stands today.
Yeah, and I think with the voting, like I believe in mail-in ballots in the sense that like there are people who, for whatever circumstance, can't go out to vote on that day, which is fine. But I don't think it should be as easy as they just automatically get a ballot to every house, so every Jim, Joe, and Jane can vote regardless. I think the barrier to like have that fire to vote, to call, to get that mail-in ballot to you, have to do that every 2 years if you can't make it.
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable, like, it's your right to vote, but it doesn't mean like you can do it on your phone after you came off a binger,
like while
the
you're
night
taking
before.
a shit.
Yeah, like there should be
Can you
some type
imagine?
of a reason about like reasonable things to this. Like a lot of people say, we say common sense gun laws, right? Which is ridiculous. But I think it should be some common sense in the sense of like it should be easy to vote, but there should be some barriers.
Well, by saying what you just said, were you done? I don't want to
go
cut
ahead.
you off. What you just brought up, gun rights. The Democrats are especially guilty of this. They make voting out to be like the number one, like air quotes thing, right? For personal freedoms and this and that.
Get out and vote.
Get out and vote, brother. But no, they make voting out to be like the thing, right? Would you guys agree with that? Is that a fair statement? That's
yeah,
like,
I mean, you can see on Instagram.
I mean,
Yeah, literally.
any celebrity that's feeling spicy or
righteous.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was a Facebook profile like picture border.
Yeah, right. So that's
That's
like
when you know that the deep state is behind it.
yeah, the deep state, the globalists. But no, so they make that like the platform, right? Like that is like your biggest responsibility as an American, like your most your most important right is that like you have a voice. But you don't need an ID for it, and all these other rights that you have that are apparently secondary to this one, you need a right. You need an ID to exercise.
Right.
Like I have to go out, even though the Second Amendment grants me. Well, the Second Amendment does not grant me anything. God grants me the right to protect myself.
Preach.
But that's
Amen.
that's we're going down a rabbit hole now. But I need to go out. I need to take a class. I need to pay a fee. I need to get this card and maintain this card for me to carry a means of self-protection, which is apparently secondary to the right to vote. But I don't need those same things in place to vote. And I'm not arguing that more regulation is good.
Yeah, you're not saying that
No.
we should put classes before voting.
No, by no means. But I'm saying
You're using that logic against them.
right. I'm quote unquote fighting the left from the left.
Correct.
It's just ridiculous that they can even make this argument.
I would argue that your they say voting's your voice, it's your most important right. I would argue that your Second Amendment right is your voice and your most important right.
I agree.
Because it's really the only recourse that anyone has, and most of the country's been neutered of that recourse, but the U.S. has not yet. So maintain that right, because I think that's the most important recourse that anyone has. Is as horrible as having to resort to using violence would be. That's the only thing stopping this country from just devolving into absolute tyranny, in my opinion.
I think
Agreed.
that's absolutely 100% accurate.
So
What are the not to cut you off again, but what do the Republicans like to say? Without the second, there's no first, or what do
Yeah,
they say?
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So
But-
that's pretty good for that subject on like that part of the law. So the next part, I think we go through pretty quickly because it kind of resonates with the first one. Election officials are prohibited from mailing ballots to voters unless they requested it. I think that goes back to the barrier thing, right?
Reasonable.
Like,
also what I said.
yeah, correct. Like,
Yeah.
like again, we're not saying there should be 20 barriers in place, but there should be at least a small barrier to vote. Like, if you're just sending out mail-in ballots everywhere, things get messy.
So based on what we're saying, you should be held to a certain standard if you're going to vote. It's not like a given. I mean, it's
a given right.
a given right, but it's not like a. It shouldn't be just like dropped on your lap. You should
It's
have
not
to
a
just
Twitter
go
poll
do
that
it.
you pull up.
Exactly. Yeah. So based on that, and then the fact that the media is making this out to be this is a racist law, this is a anti-old people law, this is like anti-minority law. That's like the road they're going down, which is usually what they go down.
But why?
So what are they saying
How can
then?
you say that?
What are they saying about minorities?
That's what I'm saying. What are you saying?
Well, see,
Yeah.
my biggest critique. Are you done with what you were going to say?
No, it's an open-ended question. I'm just
Right.
saying, what is the media saying about minorities?
No,
Yeah,
and
that's
and
what I'm
that's
saying.
that's a completely fair deduction to make based on what they're saying.
I agree.
But my biggest thing, and I'm absolutely not the first to make this point, but why are we focusing? So one of the biggest arguments when Georgia said that you need an ID, right? What was one of the biggest counter arguments from the Democrats, right? Oh, minorities can't get IDs, so that law is racist.
Yeah.
So wait, why? And this goes back to, I know we've brought it up in a lot of different episodes, but I think episode 4 we were talking about how government loves to look at the issue and not the cause. It's like, okay, well, I feel like maybe minority, or not even minorities, just anybody, the fact that like there's people that don't have access to an ID, I feel like that's a little more controversial than requiring people to have an ID to vote.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I was expecting a way bigger.
no, yeah, it's
You
true.
guys are just very quiet. I was like, well,
I mean,
okay,
we're-
never mind.
no,
I guess
we're
that point was
focused-
not that good.
And we're mainly focused on the Florida law, but like with the Georgia, I'm not too familiar with. But I would assume, like in Florida, you could at least show some like your oh my
School
God.
idea.
Social Security.
Yeah, Social Security or something, some
Your,
other
your
form of
Instagram account.
yeah, or some other form of identification doesn't necessarily be ID, but it's easy to latch onto the ID thing because there are people without IDs.
Right.
Yeah, but why?
I mean,
I feel like
it's-
that's a bigger issue than
It's
requiring people to have an ID.
I mean, if you don't drive, you probably don't have an ID, even though you can get a non-driver license ID, which maybe some people don't know that you can do. But like,
I
what's
didn't know that.
yeah, you can get just an identification card that's just like an ID but without driver's license. But if you don't drive, like you probably don't go. Why would you want to go through the DMV to do that? You know, I wouldn't.
Right, but isn't that? I mean,
But if
isn't,
you want to
isn't
vote, then you have to.
Yeah, or like I was saying, like I don't know the Georgia law, but Florida, you can show or you can give your Social Security.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everybody has Social
everybody
Security.
has that? Yeah.
Yeah, if you were born,
Yeah.
you have one.
Yeah, you have a belly button and you have a Social Security number.
Sir,
Yeah.
were you born?
Yeah.
I was unleashed onto the earth. I'd like to think that I was. You guys remember Donnie from the Wild Thornberries? I feel like that was me, and I was just unleashed onto the planet Earth.
I feel like you're right.
Yeah, and I developed into this thing.
And
that I am
Cam is
today.
just Nigel trying to
Yeah.
tame you down.
nose and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Got him.
Damn, that was fucked up, Bookie.
No, that was good.
That was
Yeah.
it was good, but that was also fucked up.
he's like, no, it was good.
He's like, no, it wasn't fucked up. That was funny.
No. Okay, so the next topic, or the next part of that law that I think is really interesting, actually, is the ballot harvesting.
Yeah.
So that limits how many ballots a single person can bring to a ballot box or to a official drop to 2 or less. I think if like you were like a marital couple, you can have like maybe 2 or 3, but it's usually 2 or less now. What's interesting about this law that I found was that it's actually been illegal in Miami for quite a while. Like you have not been able to ballot harvest in the Miami area.
So what defines? I know you said it's people going around collecting it, but at what point does it become ballot harvesting versus just collecting?
It's the number of how many you have.
It's the number.
So
okay.
now based in Florida, it's you can only have 2 or less.
Gotcha.
You can only drop off 2 or less now.
Gotcha.
Again,
So-
I'm good with that.
So yeah, so before we saw this election, and people go around, you could grab 20, 30 ballots and drop them off at once.
Right.
Huh.
And obviously, the point that if you see someone, if you're looking at it in a nefarious way, is well, this person could have grabbed them; they're not filled in. They can
Yeah.
fill in what they want, or if they are, I guess they could change it somehow, but they probably couldn't. But again, this is something where Miami's had this law in place for a while, and it's actually pretty funny because Florida ballot harvesting was illegal up until 2000. Was this 2001, and then in 2002, Republicans took that law off the books,
That's funny.
and now they're putting it back on, which is pretty interesting.
That is funny.
And in 2012, a statewide grand jury made a plea to the Florida state saying, hey, you should probably put this law back in place because nefarious things can happen.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, what purpose is there to someone holding more than 2 ballots? Like, I could think of like me and like my mom.
Right?
like,
Oh, yeah.
like, what? Like that's like that's. I'd
Yeah.
go to the mailbox, drop them off. All right, we're good.
Or if you're
Like,
married, it's like you and your
yeah,
partner.
me and my like. It just
Right.
makes no sense. Like,
Well, I think the idea is like you go around, say, hey, did you vote? Oh, you didn't vote. Here's this,
Give me
No.
your ballot and I'll
yeah,
drop it off.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Vote now and do that. So
but
it's
that
kind of like
comes back
soliciting.
to. But that comes back to our point of like, yeah, like
Yeah.
if you can't get your ass to the mailbox to drop off a mail-in ballot,
Right.
like.
Right.
Yeah, if voting is that important to you and you can't make that little bit of effort,
But how does that? So I guess the ballots they get dropped off at a like like a certain destination at the
ballot
office.
box?
Yeah. So is there? That's another thing. Is
They put it on there, yeah.
So they want the ballot boxes are only going to be out during work hours.
Correct.
That's
Right.
the other thing. You're gonna go into
And it
that
has
next-
to be supervised by an actual person.
right.
Right. And so that's the thing is like people could just drop them off like willy nilly before.
Not anymore.
Like it made like
Yeah.
you could just drop off wherever the hell you wanted
Yeah.
before.
50
How does
ballots.
it not make sense that there'd be someone out there just like at least just like
Well,
giving
I mean,
giving them
they
a stank
kinda-
eye.
Yeah.
Making them feel guilty if they're
Well,
if they're
like,
being
so, like,
nefarious.
Yeah.
If
Give them a
anything, it's like a natural deterrent, right? Like, it's proven that if, like, most break-ins, again, not to say, like, people who
you
screw
just
the
gotta
ballots,
give them the stank eye. That's
like,
it.
are criminals, but, like, if someone's gonna be a criminal and try to break into your house, if the door is not unlocked, like, they're almost, like, 60% gonna turn away.
Yeah.
And then if, like, they try to break in, go past the locked door, if they hear a dog, it's almost, like, 99% they're deterred.
Yeah.
So, like, there's easy
I
things.
almost killed somebody the other night.
Or if they
Trying
hear
to break
me,
into my
if
truck.
they hear me racking
Swear
my
to God.
shotgun,
Yeah.
they'll fuck.
So, like,
Yeah.
it's
Someone
like,
was in between my trucks the other night, dude. I swear to God.
Yeah,
Did I tell you about that?
yeah. You told me.
Yeah.
You didn't tell these
What,
guys.
someone
though.
trying to break into your truck?
Yeah, dude. So I'm like,
what
in-
time of the night?
It wasn't even that late, dude. It was like 11:30.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
Some people go to
So
sleep
I heard
early.
some noise. I got up, and we have the rings and shit. So I'm looking at the rings. I don't see nothing. Look out of the front door, and sure shit, there's someone in between our fucking trucks.
Wait, like your truck's like you and your father's.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
so I grabbed my, I grabbed my gun the second I heard something. So I got up and I'm looking around, and I see someone between the trucks.
What?
Yeah. So I go to the garage. I fucking open the garage, and I have a light on my handgun, and the garage comes open. I like kind of duck down so I could see. You know what I mean? By the time the garage is open, they're gonna be gone, whoever it was. So I duck down. I'm shining the light, and I see fucking a pair of legs taking off down the driveway. So I just started screaming. I'm like, "I'll fucking kill you! You come back here, motherfucker!" But yeah, dude. Well, maybe I told you guys. My neighbor, two houses down, got their brand new F-250. Like, this is like a $90,000 truck. Got it stolen.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
whole damn truck.
Goddamn whole damn truck. They left their key fob in it. They left their key fob in the truck.
Rookie mistake.
Dude, and the craziest part was, these kids were like 14 and 15 years old.
Dang.
Oh, they caught him?
Yeah, dude, they like,
How shitty do you have to be to get caught?
they ended up in like a high speed
I mean,
chase.
F-250. It's hard to miss.
Yeah, it's hard not to get caught in that thing.
Them boys
Especially
rolling
stolen
cold.
one boy.
If you're
Them
gonna
boys
steal
rolling cold.
Yeah,
down
them
the
boys
highway.
said school. They ended up in Palm Bay in like I don't know if it was like air quotes high speed chase, but they were in a chase. They like ran through some fences, got the truck stuck, and it was like a bunch of like 14, 15-year-old kids from like South Florida. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then get this. They get the truck back, they get it fixed, and like a week later, same kids come back to try and rob the
No
truck again.
way.
Yes.
Dude.
Yeah.
From South Florida, you said?
South
What are
South
they doing
Florida,
up
boy.
here?
That I mean,
Well, dude, that's the dumbest thing. They stole. Well, I guess it's not that dumb. It wasn't their car, but they stole a car earlier in the night, and they left it parked on their driveway. They left it parked on my neighbor's driveway. They were like, that truck looks way cooler than this piece of shit. It was like an Audi that they
Dude,
stole.
these kids are definitely GTA fans.
Dude, they're fucking gangster, boy.
Left the car. That car.
All
looks
I know
cool.
is I almost fucking shot one of them last night, or not last night, a couple nights ago.
I mean, I guess
That's crazy.
sample size of one. I've heard another person talk about someone trying to steal their car, and when they were caught, they were from South Florida as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
right.
Well, it's all the chop shops down there. They
Yeah,
can
so
steal a
it's-
truck and make it disappear
It's something
overnight.
that's been happening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People
that's-
come up and
Right.
but
I mean, it's
I
not
vote
just
that
Miami.
We cut
though.
off all transportation from South Florida. I think
Yeah.
we just blow up
95,
No more transportation.
just the
from
south of
Florida.
Okeechobee. South.
I'm in favor of that.
Anything south of Fort Pierce, sorry.
Yeah, or have like a bypass like they do around Atlanta. Just go around our little Indian River County.
All right,
Stay
what
out
were
of
you
it.
saying, Book?
Yeah, sorry, we got way off track.
No, yeah. So it's correct, man. Truck's getting stolen. But yeah. So we were talking about the ballot harvesting. Definitely a fan of that being in place.
Me too.
It's good to have that, just because I mean, we'd like to think that no one's going to do anything that's going to be in bad faith.
I don't like to think that.
I think you have to, when it's open to public things like this, you have to kind of be in mind that these things will happen.
Yes.
And we might as well put things in place that have the ability to stop it, and then retrofitting it later. I definitely think a lot of these laws are interesting since they're, again, like kind of like Chris said in the beginning, which has been a criticism, is a lot of these Republican states have stated, our voting and our elections went well, but now we're putting this in place. But it would make sense if you're like, okay, it went well, but we see on some scale and some states things were a little weird. We might as well plug up holes that we see.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the way
I see it.
If I want my government to do anything, that's kind of what I want them to do, is make sure they're being proactive.
No, they saw the things that happened in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Arizona.
Yeah.
And
so what's up with that
they want to
audit?
plug up those holes. So.
What's going on with the audit in Arizona? Is that finalized yet or no?
I haven't really
so.
been keeping up with it, honestly.
All I know is I see a bunch of retarded Republican, congressmen and senators.
Every week they're like, "Oh, Trump's president."
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay.
Really? They're still doing that?
Oh, it eerily reminds me of
I'm
the whole QAnon thing.
Oh, no,
they're
it's
all
the same
like,
thing.
yeah, they're all like, this bombshell, whatever. It's like, okay, you've been saying that for 4 months now.
They're going to hold on to that until the next election where they have to be elected, and they're like, oh man, I hope the Trump
Yeah,
supporters...
Trump's going to get reelected. They're going to be like, see,
No.
we fucking told you.
No, I thought that was over, man.
No,
I didn't know that
No,
was still a
no.
thing.
I think they're just hoping the Trump supporters vote for them since they held on to this conspiracy theory. For
Well,
so
see,
long.
and
A lot of people, man.
I'm glad you brought that up because part of me, and I know almost everything we've talked about that Deasntis is doing, we always kind of end up bringing it back to the whole, is he just trying to
Welcome back,
rally
Daddy D,
his
to the
troops?
episode.
Yeah, Daddy D. We can't escape Daddy's D.
Episode 5, Daddy D.
Can't escape Daddy's D. But yeah, so is this just another hollow attempt at boosting his base?
I think it's a shallow attempt, maybe not hollow. I think there's some good things in here.
Me too.
It's definitely some things, again, the criticism of, things aren't wrong, why are you fixing it? But if you know there are things that could possibly be wrong, I think you should fix them just because they're not a problem yet.
Yeah.
There is one thing I saw. So there's currently 4 current lawsuits going against this law, or certain parts of it at least, because you can target a certain area of the law. One that I've seen that's been brought up, at least a couple of them, is part of the law states that third-party voter registrations or third-party voter registration organizations must inform applicants that the organization might not meet legal deadlines for delivering forms to election officials and must tell applicants how to register online. I think that's pretty fucked up.
Explain that.
So there's third-party organizations that will be like, hey, we will help you get involved with the voting process. We will, again, I'm not 100% sure, but if you go through I guess Democrats of Vero Beach, they'll be like, hey, we'll get you set up with voting. We can get you the mail-in ballots. You can send them to us, and we'll make sure they get to places.
Mm-mm.
So what this law is stating, in some form of it, is saying that they're going to have to say to their applicants, hey, we might not meet the deadline to get this there.
Right.
Which, if you think about it, is you're going to force us to say this, even if we've never missed a deadline for an application.
Oh, they haven't?
Yeah. So this is just
Okay.
a blanket statement, hey, you're going to do this. You have to say this to your people who are going through you.
Right.
Which is why would we have to say this if we've never missed a deadline?
Right.
Or hey, we're going through this third party organization. Why do we have to tell them to go online or how they would go online? So it's kind of like the government. So the way they're going at this through the lawsuit is they're going against their First Amendment right because it's dictating what speech they have to do to applicants that are going through the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, just me quickly looking at it makes perfect sense because how is the government going to dictate whether you agree or not through these organizations or what they stand for is why do we have to say this to people if we've never missed a deadline? I know I've said that a couple times, but why?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's pretty simple to see. This is saying, hey, we might fuck up, even though we probably won't fuck up. You're trying to tell us that we might fuck up to, or people are going through us when we won't.
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to put this doubt into people's heads. Like if they went to Publix and be like, hey, every time people, cash out with you, you have to say, hey, we might actually put on a $20 charge through this transaction, even though we've never done that
Even though there's
before.
no evidence that it's
Yeah.
ever happened before, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
weird.
interesting. It's trying to deter people from using these organizations.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That seems like a little
I mean,
bit like of a-
it doesn't make sense, but what you're saying makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
but that seems like a little bit more of like a Republican move.
Oh, for sure. This is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I think the main people that had a problem with that was the Southern Poverty Law Center, which I think is, obviously very affiliated with the Democrat Party. And,
the Harriet
Yeah.
Tubman too one, I think,
yeah, I don't,
organization.
and like you said, probably,
Does
probably
she have
they
any
always-
relation to Tub Girl?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I mean, they'd have every incentive to get, because the types of people that are coming through their organization are probably the people who are going to vote on their ticket for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So they have every incentive to get every application through. So yeah, it doesn't really make sense. But on the other hand, I did see one quote from a lady from the Southern Poverty Law Center. She said, we're gonna try to get everyone through, and I'm just like, wait, you're gonna try? Like, but if it's true, like you said, that they've never missed a deadline, then it's like,
Why even mention
why
it?
even?
Yeah. Or like even if you have missed a deadline, it's like things happen, right? Like even the private sector, like things like unfortunately do happen. But like
Right.
forcing a company to say something because it might happen is kind of like iffy in my book. Like
Yeah.
I mean, like I would assume this would go through court and kind of be taken out of law.
Right. No, I mean, it's like you like order materials from a company. Like it's pretty implicit that like there's a possibility there could be a delay or something. But
Yeah.
we're not going to mandate that company to say, hey, there's a possibility that there can
Like,
be a delay.
Right, at the
Like,
very most, it's like written in fine print on
Yeah.
the contract
Exactly,
that you
that's-
sign. Yeah. Saying like, oh, hey, things can happen. But the company's not going to come out and, flat out say like, hey, I know you're, ordering lumber for an entire house, but there's a chance that you're not going to get any of it.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
reality nowadays, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
unfortunately.
I saw that a lot of the criticisms were that like the laws were too vague. Like that's what a lot of especially mostly like the
And that's by design. I don't know if you guys have noticed.
sure.
I don't know if you guys noticed that any bill that's ever been written in human history, none of them are very,
super specific.
yeah,
Like probable cause.
yeah.
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 So I mean that's what like a lot of like the government working officials were saying. Like like the people who are like the tax collectors and people who are working these actual laws, kind of like, oh, they're too vague. We don't know what we're supposed to do. But the thing is with that is a lot of these laws require them to do more.
Correct.
Like now you have to surveillance like 24 hours the Dropbox. So now they're like, oh, now we have to work harder.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, that's okay. Like, it's okay that you work harder. We pay you to work harder. I'm like, you're collecting tax dollars.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of it. I felt like was like, okay, well, it's okay that you work harder.
I mean, the bottom line is if you think the election process is legit every single
You're a
election
dumbass.
cycle, you just really you're not paying attention. You see, I mean, this year especially, we've seen the videos of the people counting the ballots and stuff, and it's just like it's a process that's just it's doled out to people who are temporary workers. They're not people who have been working with the local governments for that long. They're like temporary volunteer workers. If you don't think that there's people in those ranks that have certain motivations and that they have reasons to maybe not count a ballot or whatever, and that stuff adds up, and eventually it could turn an election. I mean, most of the time probably it's going to be accurate to whoever won, but there was a bunch of states this year that were within like 80 votes or something like that.
Yeah,
And
a
it's
lot of
like,
them.
so if you really think that there's never been a election in the U.S. where it was won one way or the other falsely, you're lying to yourself, because nothing's perfect.
Right.
That's just the
Especially-
reality of the world.
Yeah, especially when, I know I'm just kind of repeating what you said, but especially when it's left up to, humans essentially. And I know you really nailed this point, Cameron, in whatever episode it was, where no matter who you are, you have motivations and you have agendas. So
Yeah.
when you have a system that's built on, and like you said, Chris, unskilled workers that are 99% of the time temporary workers for the election cycle that may or may not, but that may have their own agenda.
Absolutely have their own agenda.
Absolutely have their own agenda.
I mean,
You're
we saw-
leaving it up to
We saw pictures of ballot counters wearing Biden masks this year. So.
yeah. Yeah, regardless if you think there was election fraud or not, you can make the deduction just based off of logical thinking that there was definitely some foul play. Did it swing the election completely and cause Trump to lose? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I haven't seen any compelling evidence that it did.
Do we think there was enough?
Ooh, we're going
Fraud?
down a rabbit hole.
Oh, we're gonna do this right now?
Why
Let's
not?
do it.
That's fun.
Let's do
And
it.
this is a Q podcast again.
Yeah, hey, we're going cute.
Welcome to the queue.
I don't know. I posted a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Did that sound funny when I said that?
I don't think so.
No.
I
I've
drank-
drank
I've
the
drank
same
a-
amount as you, so
Yeah. Anyway, I know I posted a lot of videos during the whole election process of some questionable activity. But with that being said, I did look at some of the lawsuits and I did look at a lot of the evidence. None of the evidence swayed me into believing that the election was, quote, air quotes, stolen. We'll see what the
No.
Arizona election audits.
I think the Arizona one is the first one that's actually being
Yeah.
investigated. The other ones they were thrown out based on just not enough evidence.
Well, yeah, that's
basically
it. There's right,
Yeah.
which is it's a weird thing because just because you can't prove something doesn't mean that it didn't happen, right?
yeah, I mean, evidence
Yeah.
takes time to compile. So.
Right. So I think,
but at the same time, no body, no crime.
Yeah.
yeah. I think whatever happens in this Arizona election, not that I don't think no matter what we find, I don't think that there's going to be some like overture of like
No.
we're going to pull Biden out and put Trump in or
No.
whatever people think is going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think the Arizona election is going to be the starting point for it. I think that's going to really be the determining factor on what the rest of the states do. I think if we see like something crazy in Arizona, that we're going to see a lot more states pick up on it, but I'm also not super confident that we're going to see that. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I think that if you believe there's no election fraud in any election,
You're stupid.
yeah, you're kind of an idiot. I mean, it's, again, run by people who have their own motivations. As we know, people are idiots, people are selfish, people will do things to their own accord, or for just monetary benefit. Was there enough in this election to sway the vote towards Biden versus Trump? I don't think so. Just because I think if there was, it would be a lot more evidence for it. And to think that this is something that's...
Yeah, but Boogie the globalist and the
Yeah.
numbers and the documents.
The Grove. But,
That's a real thing, though.
it is.
Yeah.
Whatever. Guys got
We'll do that on another podcast.
Yeah.
We
No.
should should do like a Q episode where we go into some of the most ridiculous Q theories,
That'd be
but
fun.
like we also go into the true ones like Bohemian Grove
Yeah.
and like Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But, to think this is like
Thanks. You are too.
obviously this election, it's been focused on the Democrats. But if you don't think the Republicans do the same thing, you're an idiot.
Yep.
Every side...
Trump would never do that though,
Yeah.
Boogie.
Well, no, he won't because he's fiddling with his McDouble and putting his orange cream sauce all over his face.
Orange cream sauce, huh?
Yeah. But like,
Our uncle actually worked on one of his lawsuits, and he said that Uncle Craig, remember him telling the story? That they went on his private 747 massive commercial jetliner, and that's what they served him. They served him, like, him and his,
People.
legal team. Yeah, they served at McDonald's on the...
yeah, he fucking
his
loves
private
sauce.
jet, yeah.
But no, if you don't think Republicans do the same thing, like out of our two-party system, that's majority of what people see. They're both evil.
As corrupt, yeah.
Exactly. Like Republicans are trying to take as much as they can through elections in small towns as the Democrats.
Yep.
Well, look, that comes back to what we talked about, I don't know, last episode or so or whatever. But it's the idea that people, like, if they think they can make a move, and get what they want, they're going to do it, And I mean, one party isn't more not selfish, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean,
that's what cracks me
just-
up. People
it's
think
just people.
their party is so, like, much more morally righteous. They're made of the same biological matter as the other party. They're the same fucking
They're
thing.
the same lizards that have been in the Senate and Congress for the past 40 years.
Well, yeah, that's another great point. Like, it's like everyone's like, oh, Biden's been in politics for 50-something years and he hasn't done shit. It's like, okay, well, what about, like, all of the Republicans?
Yeah.
Well,
They've all been-
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least Lindsey Graham's killed people in the Middle East, right?
oh,
Hey.
between what
I'll
was it?
give them that.
Fuck you, Lindsey Graham.
between Lindsey Graham and John McCain, the
Yeah.
two biggest.
Oh, that loser? Wait, Trump said.
Between the two biggest warmongers.
How dare you get caught, you fucking idiot?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, really, if you base your morality on what one political party does, you should really, really look into what your morality is, what your principles are. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
If your morality is based on what the Republican Party does, you should really take a deep look into it.
Because the Republican Party has done some of the most egregious
Right.
war crimes, and I mean, the same goes with Democrats too. But
No, I'm just saying. Like,
No,
really,
I know you
really.
know that.
I
I'm
mean,
just
I
saying
know,
for
I
the-
know. As a Christian and other people who are Christians, we look at they want to look at like the Republican Party as like the all righteous moral compass of you really have to step back and be like, wait a second.
yeah, Bush literally lied us into war.
Yeah, I mean, really, we blew up people for
Well, let's be honest.
no reason there.
He probably didn't give a shit. He was lied to war too.
Well, yeah, I mean his dad, was the one who went into the Gulf War, and he kind of came out of it looking like an idiot because he, just fucking. I mean, we basically lost that war. Like the Gulf War was basically. I mean, we invaded, fucked them up, and then it was just like.
Hey, we
disaster after that.
Strategically,
And so he
Is
came
that what
out
you're
of
talking
that.
about? The Gulf War or
The Gulf War, yeah, and then
Sounds
he
a
came,
lot like
the Korean
the,
War or Vietnam.
It's a lot like every war. But yeah, he came out of that with egg on his face. So you kind of look at the way I see George W. Bush whenever he invaded Iraq, considering that there was really no reason to invade Iraq at all. It seems like he was just kind of, following in his dad's footsteps, trying to
like father, like son.
trying to redeem the father. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the way
I will
always seen
I mean, a lot of people look at it.
Maybe
that
he
way,
didn't
too.
see it that way, but I
But
don't know.
the
That's the way I
unfortunate
see
part
it.
is a lot of people see that. I mean, I was too young, but hopefully I would have seen for what it was, quotes, right? But a lot of people see that now after the fact where it's too late, which is what happens, right? So, like, now everybody's like, oh, yeah, the war in Iraq was terrible.
But
Yeah,
we're
it
there
was,
now.
But we're still there, and we still killed thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who didn't need to be civilians.
Yeah.
Which is, like, I don't think people realize, like, civilians. Like, what if you're just going to Publix
And you just got fucking...
and your child is in the other aisle grabbing the apple juice and they get fucking bombed,
Yep.
right? And you wake up and like smoke and like
It's
crumbled.
so easy to disconnect yourself from it when
Yeah,
you're not there. Like, you're not there.
for sure.
People don't understand what that reality is.
Well, I
Nobody
mean,
wants
you
to
have
think
enough
about it.
propaganda that tells you this side is evil, these people are evil, when they're not any different than me and Chris.
Well,
and,
I'd argue we're the terrorists over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know that is, and I know that's not a
Well, there
popular.
goes all our Republican
Yeah, Hey,
listeners.
fuck 'em. No, I know that's not
See you
a
guys.
very
Nice
popular opinion, but what else would you call that? What else would you call what we're doing in the Middle East right now?
It's
If not terrorist.
it's Iraqi
aggressive
freedom.
intervention.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
We
we're
had 50
we're
followers.
spreading democracy, as they say, right?
We had 50
Yeah.
followers, now we have 25.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey,
No,
tell
no.
me I'm fucking wrong though. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I'm not going to.
Hey,
No,
Biden
it's hard.
says we'll be out by what, September? 9/11?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not fucking hopeful. They've been
Not-
saying
yeah.
that for the past like what
Hey,
5, 6,
If
7
he,
years.
if he does that, I will freaking give him a Dutch rudder.
The
Well,
fact,
you know,
I'll
the
go.
fact.
I'll go hand on dick, bro. when he's
Okay,
out.
okay, hold on. The fact that he changed it though
Oh, he
to make it,
postponed it.
yeah, to postpone it to make it 9/11. Just
Oh
tells
yeah,
you
he
what kind of
extended it right.
dirtbag.
Like,
tells
hey,
you.
I'm gonna we're gonna blow up people in the Middle East for another couple months just so we can end it on 9/11.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not only that, but also risk all of the American soldiers' lives who are
Yep.
over there
Right.
For another
just
6
for
months.
a fucking token date. Like you
Yeah.
wanna make it a perfect 20 year.
Right.
Like, oh, you're such a
Like,
fucking
oh wow,
asshole,
oh
dude.
Biden, you're so great. You did it on 9/11. You're
Damn.
just.
But yeah, we're a little off track.
I was.
No, this is
I was
fun.
just thinking about that. I'm like, wait, what were we talking about
Yeah.
again? We were talking about
So
voting.
So
Yeah.
voting laws.
Yeah, so the voting law, some good, some bad,
Mitch's
But-
fly whiskey.
but
yeah,
overall,
very well recommended.
Who's gonna finish this bottle with me? We have literally half a glass each.
We
yeah.
still got a little segment to do at the end
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because we
yeah.
didn't.
Boogie,
no, we already
Boogie,
did.
bring
it.
us back. Bring us
Yeah,
back.
so the voting law, some good, some kind of questionable. There are some barriers put up, which I think we'd agree is decent. And the fact that, yes, voting is a right, but just because something is a right doesn't mean that we want everybody to do it. I guess the best way to say is, like, if this was, like, if you voted for your mayor in a Twitter poll, do you think you get the best mayor? Probably not, right?
No,
No.
absolutely not.
So, like, we want educated, quote unquote, educated people who are willing to take one extra step to vote
Right.
to do so. I think that's perfectly understandable because it's not saying you can't vote. It's just saying you have to take the extra step to do so.
yeah,
Some of these things in this law, like the thing with dictating what third-party organizations who help people vote say, I think is ridiculous. But again, putting a couple steps in there so people have to re-up for mail-in ballots is fine. Making sure that people can't just harvest ballots, have a truck full of ballots in their car and drop off is perfectly understandable. Again, this is fine. Probably Deasntis, not to give him any more fluff for what he's doing. This is, again, going with the Republican line that's happening again with a lot of Republican states. So he's probably just doing this to rally his base, but doesn't mean some of this is good.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's my thoughts on it.
those are pretty good closing statements from
Yeah.
Bookie.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I agree totally. I think what you said is good. I mean, I don't know. I don't really have anything to add to that. I think you've kind of nailed it. I think all the criticisms seem kind of silly. It seems like a lot of the criticisms and lawsuits are like fluff, and the fact that like the people in the government and the voting booths and stuff have to work a little bit harder. But hey,
With that stuff, for sure. But I think
Yeah.
the stuff where they dictate speech is where I think hopefully they get put down.
yeah,
And it gets changed.
yeah, that seems kind of nonsense. But that's what
But
one
again,
out of the
people are
5
just-
things we talked about.
Yeah, but again, just people saying like, "Oh, I have to work harder. Make sure this one at the mail-in ballot box." All right, cool. That's understandable.
I think it's important that people feel confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my closing statements, I'm going to take. Shut up, Cameron. I'm going to give the and I know I know Chris has a lot of the same views as I do. I'm gonna take my minute here to delve into the anarchist point of view on voting. While I agree, if we are going to do this whole voting system, I agree with what you guys said. I think some of these barriers are probably a better thing to kind of get people a little more motivated if they're going to have a voice, that it should be of the highest quality, not to discredit, people who Well, yeah, no, fuck them. To discredit the people who don't want to put the work in to have their voice heard, while it's our right as Americans, if you're going to be deterred by having to fill out a form or two, you probably shouldn't be voting in the first place. My biggest issue with voting is that no matter what way you slice it, no matter what way you look at it, at the end of the day, it's one group of people imposing their rights on another, and from a moral perspective, I don't see how that is at all ethical. And I know that's completely unrelated to the topic.
No,
but
that makes sense. I agree to that point where it's like, yeah. I agree in that point, like the grand scheme of things, right? Like when it comes to presidential elections and stuff like that, where like 49% of the people get put under a boot, while 51% get to rule, right? That's kind of what it comes down to.
It's exactly what it comes down to.
From like an anarchist point of view. I'd
argue from any point of view.
Yeah, I mean, but my point of view for voting on I think it's more beneficial in more local communities, because hopefully then, in more local communities, and in the fact that where a government wasn't so humongous, the rule that they have over you would be so negligible.
Well, right. At the end of the day, it shouldn't matter who's in office.
Correct.
Right.
And it really doesn't, because the deep state controls them. But
the globalists.
But if we're going nationwide, right? If Biden couldn't do shit, or the Fed really couldn't do shit that's going to affect us down the line, it really doesn't matter who wins, because we can still live in our communities, still thrive, and then our local elections matter more, which they still do. But it comes in those nationwide elections where it's now you're having Democrats versus Republicans, and when Chris says a couple episodes, over time, that's really when the division comes, right? Mm-hmm. And it's becoming more and more apparent every election year, where every time the Republicans win, Democrats feel like they're being suppressed more and they're being oppressed more, so they get more
defensive,
more emboldened, and more, and then it's just this.
But it goes both ways.
Correct.
I know, yeah.
And when Democrats win, same thing happens. So we get this humongous swing left, and then we get this humongous swing right. Mm-hmm. So we never really get this swing that's kind of, again, because the government's so big, we never get this swing that's so negligible.
You know what we call that in physics and natural science? Wobble.
The wobble?
Wobble.
So I'm going to take this one step further.
Yes, let's go.
So I'm going to bring up some Lysander Spooner here. So this is
Spooner.
This is some theory regarding the Constitution, and this kind of delves into voting too, where we're voting every cycle into a system that we never agreed on.
Right.
And
I never signed a social contract, as they say.
Right.
And I just want to state real fast, Chris, before you say that, if you're still listening to this right now, you're the fucking man.
We're on 2 hours and 8 minutes, so thank you for sticking around. Yeah, this has been a long night.
I hope you listen.
And I said we ain't done yet.
So if you're listening at this point, you're the fucking man or woman.
And we love you.
Hell yeah. We love you. So anyways, we're gonna delve into some deep dive. But so I'm just gonna quote Lysander Spooner here. So this is regarding the Constitution and who consented to it. So in the very nature of things, the act of voting could bind nobody but the actual voters. But owing to the property qualifications required, it is probable that during the first 20 or 30 years under the Constitution, not more than 1/10, 15th, or perhaps 20th of the whole population were permitted to vote. Consequently, so far as voting was concerned, no more than 1/10, 15th, or 20th of those then existing could have incurred any obligation to support the Constitution. At the present time, in 1869, when Lysander was writing this, it is probable that not more than 1/6 of the whole population are permitted to vote. Consequently, so far as voting is concerned, the other 5/6 can have given no pledge that they will support the Constitution. So even in 1869, the majority of the population wasn't in a position where they could have even given consent to the Constitution as it is. So, I mean, we can agree to live under the Constitution. That's if you voluntarily agree to live under the Constitution, then that's fine. But as far as legality goes, nobody living today has ever consented to the Constitution.
Right. It's just a fucking piece of paper at the end of the day.
Right.
And I know Republicans get really hung up on the Constitution, but
Yes.
nothing in the Constitution grants you rights. All of the rights that are so, air quotes, granted to you by the Constitution, those are rights you have by merely existing.
Yeah, the God-given.
Whether you believe in God or,
Whether it's
the
written on a
universe
piece
or-
of paper or not.
Right. That's why, I think the best thing the Republicans can do is to shut the fuck up about the Constitution and just grow a set of balls and start,
Doing things.
yeah,
Like-
yeah, or not doing things.
Or undoing things.
Yeah, what's that quote where if I find if I find a law tolerable, I'll tolerate it, and if I don't, whatever. What's that quote? You know the quote? I gotta look it up.
I know
It's a
what you're
good quote.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's, at this point, it's hard to make the argument that anybody's obliged to live under any, system that we've created, because it's a piece of paper at the end of the day. And there's a certain group of people who claim power because of it, and
Right.
that's just the way things are.
Right. Here's a quote by Robert A. Heinley. I am free no matter what rules surround me. If I find them tolerable, I tolerate them. If I find them too obnoxious, I break them. I am free because I know what I alone am morally responsible for everything I do.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up like the way we see things.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean,
from a libertarian anarchist perspective, absolutely.
especially for an anarchist. But I think even like libertarian, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a libertarian, but like I'd agree with some things they say. Like it comes to a point where like as human beings who
So
live,
wait, if you don't consider yourself libertarian, what are you? You consider yourself
I'm a bookie.
gay?
It's a bookie.
Yeah.
He's a book.
No,
It's a
but like,
bookie.
This motherfucker's a book.
but it's like one of those.
Yo,
things,
book ass head.
it's one of those things where like inherently as human beings, in a general, like we have a set of morals that even if we never met each other, we agree on, right? Like we understand without like if I never met someone, like I go up to you like, hey, do you want to kill this person? They're like, no, I don't really want to do that. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
I don't either, right? So it comes into contact like I don't know,
Like
probably-
objective wrongs.
Yeah, like
basically.
chemical, like that's where like the God-given thing comes from. Like like there's a sense of like some higher power has given us this sense of morals to live by,
Yeah.
and like the general typical person understands this without really even being taught this, right?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
So it's like those things like go with us and like should be what we really take into heart more than like you said a piece of paper. Even if like we agree or some of us agree that like a piece of paper is a good stepping off point.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because the paper doesn't say it or does say it doesn't mean we can't like just listen to like what's inside.
Or it doesn't mean it's the right.
You gotta
thing.
listen to your art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like kind of like weird to say in a sense, but like yeah, like yeah, like,
No, but you're right though. A lot of people like to reduce morals down to legality, and it's like, well, you're forgetting the idea that at one point it was perfectly legal to own another human being.
yeah,
Like legality does not equal morality.
correct. And there's people during that time who thought that was not morally correct.
Right.
Yeah,
They might-
and they were a very small percentage.
Correct. They might have been a very small percentage who weren't. There might be more. Again, there might be more who actually thought that, but weren't in a place of power to prevent that.
Yeah.
Right. Because again,
Yeah.
this is people who were very rich.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and I just want to point out, was it New Jersey or New York? They were actually the last ones to
New Jersey.
abolish. New Jersey was the last state in the Union at the time
In the U.S.
in the U.S. to abolish slavery.
But was that like a lynching thing where it's like there's other laws that kind of stop you from owning slaves, and they just had to like put in.
Well, it
wording?
was because the Emancipation Proclamation
Yeah.
freed the slaves in the South, but it didn't free any of the slaves in the North.
Yeah, it was specifically for the South.
Okay.
So the North was left to do whatever they wanted to do, and Jersey said, "Hey, we gonna keep our slaves, boy." You know what I'm saying?
But they didn't really have any slaves though.
They had some.
Yeah.
I mean, like-
It's a garden state, they got gardens. and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't know. I kind of see that as like the,
Nailed it, right?
Like,
Nailed it.
what was that? A couple
Gotta
years
keep
ago,
them daisies growing, mate.
where those lynching laws were like a huge thing, where people were like, we're not going to put lynching laws on our laws because it's another law where the laws we have in place already stop that because you can't do that.
You can't murder people.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, it sounds a lot like what you're explaining with gun laws. It's already illegal to kill people, so why does it matter what I own?
Oh.
Anyway, I digress.
Is that the
That's
wrap up?
that's a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Is it a good place to wrap it up?
Don't kill people.
Any closing arguments? Any just not even arguments, just last things.
Closing arguments. I feel like we're in court.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking you guys because I have to get the song.
I
up
did
here.
not have sex with that woman.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we can close it by saying, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.
Well, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? From a
Right.
libertarian anarchist perspective, is
Yeah, we may not agree on everything, but don't hurt people, don't take their stuff.
that's literally if you're not stealing from me, if you're not hurting me, I don't give a fuck what you do.
And if you're more anarchist, hire the better security firm.
And if, as Bookie would say, government bad, taxes evil.
There you